Chapter 1265. Greedy Wolf Immortal Domain. After Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er arrived, they directly appeared on the periphery of a large city. They looked at the sky full of sword lights as countless immortals and cultivators came in and out of the city gate. The two glanced at each other, and quickly landed on the ground outside the city gate. On the way here, Tan Xiao told Yuzhong to leave. After all, he was from the immortal world, and Tan Xiao couldn't trust him at all. The two of them followed the flow of people, and slowly walked on the wide street. Looking at the scene of the ancient city in front of them, a touch of nostalgia appeared on their faces. Compared to Earth, the two of them were actually more suitable here. After all, they had spent too much time here. Celestial Vine Pavilion. Tan Xiao pointed to a 100-meter-high tower-like building and smilingly said, "The Celestial Vine Pavilion is one of the largest businesses in the entire immortal world. We can directly sell the auric perfusion source at a low price. I believe we can sell it for 200,000 immortal crystals each." Gu Yan'er nodded and said, "We do need a lot of immortal stones and immortal crystals now. How many are you going to sell, Master?" Tan Xiao thought for a while and said, "I'll sell 4 of them. Then we'll have 20 left and bring them back for our own use. After all, this kind of treasure is what the people of the Great Tang Empire need the most." Gu Yan'er thought for a while and said, "How many immortal stones and immortal crystals does it cost to use the spatial teleportation array you used before?" Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "Given my previous identity, how could anyone dare to charge me for using the spatial teleportation array? To be honest, I really don't know the specific price. However, we have too many people, so I think we need a lot of immortal stones or immortal crystals. In that case, let's sell 4 of them," Gu Yan'er said. "I hope this Celestial Vine Pavilion is still as trustworthy as before, else we'll tear down their branch here." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "I'm looking forward to what they'll do. After all, their branch in such a remote immortal domain only has golden immortals at most. It's even possible that they only have profound immortals guarding this city." After a while, Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er had already appeared in the Celestial Vine Pavilion's shop. A beautiful clerk in a white gown came to greet them. Tan Xiao directly said, "Tell your chief steward to come out and see me. Tell him that I have a big deal to make." The shop assistant stared blankly for a moment, and carefully observed Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er. He felt that both of them had an extraordinary bearing and immediately respectfully said, "Please come with me. I'll take you to the VIP lounge on the 6th floor. I'll also inform the head steward to meet the two of you in the VIP lounge." "Lead the way." Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er followed the shop assistant to the 6th floor. After entering a spacious VIP lounge, the two of them then sat down on the immortal futon pavilion. As fragrant tea was served, a middle-aged man exuding a scholarly aura stepped into the VIP lounge with a beaming smile. His eyes swept over Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er as he immediately smiled and said, "Welcome, fellow immortals. I heard that you have a big deal to make with this humble shop. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Duantianya, the chief steward of the Celestial Vine Pavilion in the Ravenous Wolf Immortal Domain." Tan Xiao watched the beautiful shop assistant leave and closed the door. He immediately raised his hand and took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring. Then he lightly smiled and said, "Mature auric perfusion source. Give me a reasonable price. We'll make the deal if I can accept it. If I can't, I won't bargain with you and will directly leave to sell it to other shops." "Auric perfusion source?" Duan Tianya stared blankly, and then looked surprised. He opened the jade bottle and observed it for a while. Finally he nodded and said, "It's indeed a mature auric perfusion source. This kind of treasure is very valuable. Once it appears in the market, countless immortals will fight for it. Since fellow immortal said that you won't bargain, then I'll give you a real price. 240,000 immortal crystals. If fellow immortal is willing to sell it, I'll immediately pay you the immortal crystals. But if you don't, you can sell it elsewhere." 240,000 immortal crystals? Tan Xiao could still afford the price, so he nodded and said, "The price is quite reasonable. I can accept it. But I wonder how big the appetite of this Celestial Vine Pavilion branch is? Could it be that fellow immortal has more auric perfusion source?" Duan Tianya was surprised. "That's right. answered Tan Xiao. Duan Tianya carefully observed Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er again and seriously said, if fellow Immortal has no more than 10 auric perfusion source, then this branch can carry out the transaction now. If it exceeds 10, you'll need to give me 10 days. We'll buy as many auric perfusion source as you have after 10 days. A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes and he said in a deep voice, we've spent a lot of effort to get 4 of them. However, we'll increase the price a bit. The total price of 4 auric perfusion source is 1 million immortal crystals. We can carry out the transaction now if you can accept it. Duan Tianya pondered for a while, and then nodded. Deal. After Tan Xiao gave the remaining 3 auric perfusion source to Duan Tianya, he quietly waited for half an hour. Then, Duan Tianya handed an interspatial ring to Tan Xiao and said, there are 1 million immortal crystals inside. If fellow Immortal has more auric perfusion source or other good things in the future, you can also trade them with us. Our Celestial Vine Pavilion is absolutely fair in doing business. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and nodded. Rest assured. I've had countless transactions with your Celestial Vine Pavilion, so I naturally have confidence in you. Since this transaction is over, then let's part ways here. I'll naturally come to you if there's anything else in the future. Alright, I'll see you off. Duan Tianya sent Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er out of the store. As he watched them disappear into the crowd in the distance, a glint flashed in his eyes. At this moment, a middle-aged woman silently appeared beside him. Have you seen their strength? Asked Duan Tianya. That young man has the aura of a tribulation, so he should have just ascended to immortality not long ago, said the middle-aged woman. I really can't see through the woman beside him, but I think her cultivation should be much higher than mine. I'm afraid those who can sell 4 auric perfusion source at once are not simple. Duan Tianya nodded. We can earn hundreds of thousands of immortal crystals from buying 4 auric perfusion source, which is already very good. Aren't you going to send someone to investigate their identity? Asked the middle-aged woman. Forget it. Duan Tianya shook his head. It's better not to investigate such a big customer, lest they misunderstand our Celestial Vine Pavilion. That's right. You can buy one of the auric perfusion source for 250,000 immortal crystals. I'm afraid your daughter is in need of this auric perfusion source now. A hint of gratitude appeared on the middle-aged woman's face. She gently nodded and said, I'll put the immortal crystals in the storeroom later. Inside the city, Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er strolled around and bought a lot of cultivation resources. After all, they were now rich people. 1 million immortal crystals was equivalent to hundreds of millions of immortal stones. It was likely that many ordinary immortals wouldn't be able to earn so many immortal crystals, even after cultivating for thousands of years. After a round of shopping, the two of them spent a total of 200,000 immortal crystals before they left in satisfaction. However, because of their extravagant purchases, they also attracted the attention of some people. When they left the city, they discovered that there were dozens of sneaky figures following them. What should we do, master? With a smile on her face, Gu Yan'er held Tan Xiao's arm and asked in a low voice. Just shake them off, said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. It's too easy to see such thieves and rascals. Besides, such people are generally very poor, so there's no need to waste our energy. Gu Yan'er let out a faint smile and soared into the sky with Tan Xiao. In just a dozen breaths, they left behind dozens of sneaky figures and disappeared from their sight. This immortal domain was very big, and this land was even more vast. Following the coordinates of the Aurelian Artificer sect given to him by Dark North Immortal, Tan Xiao easily found the sect's location in the depths of the millions of miles mountain range. Above the clouds. Looking down at the mountain below, Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er nodded and said, I've been here before, but it's been a long time and my memory is a bit fuzzy. However, I still remember one thing. Back then, there were only mountains around the Aurelian Artificer sect, and there was no lingering spirit fog. It seems that as the Aurelian Artificer sect developed, they paid a huge price to hire a powerful array master to set up a spirit-gathering array for their sect. Someone found us, master, said Gu Yan'er with a smile. Tan Xiao looked at the dozens of burly figures soaring into the sky and laughed aloud. I'm Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, and I've come to keep the appointment. Please lead the way to see your sect master, Dark North Immortal. The leader was a burly man with red hair. He observed Tan Xiao and Gu Yan a few times and immediately showed respect. He cupped his fists and said, "We were ordered to wait for Great Tang Fellow Immortal outside the sect. Please follow me since Fellow Immortal has arrived." Understood. After a while, the red-haired man led Tan Xiao and Gu Yan into the Aurelian Artificer sect's interior. Crafting cauldrons could be seen everywhere inside the Aurelian Artificer sect. In almost every corner, disciples of the Aurelian Artificer sect could be seen busily working near the cauldrons. Ha ha ha. A loud laughter came from a distance as Dark North Immortal quickly came to Tan Xiao and Gu Yan with two high-level members of the Aurelian Artificer sect. Great Tang Fellow Immortal is really punctual. It's not even half a year yet you're already here. Tan Xiao smiled and said, "We naturally won't waste any more time since we've already gotten enough immortal crystals. Anyways, how's the matter I entrusted you with, Dark North Immortal?" "Don't worry." Dark North Immortal smiled. "My sect has invited all the artificers within tens of millions of kilometers. Hundreds of thousands of people have been refining them day and night. It'll take us 10 months at most to complete your order. However, we've invited too many artificers, and our consumption is also very fast. I wonder if..." Tan Xiao flipped his hand and took out an interspatial ring with 200,000 immortal crystals he had prepared in advance. He handed it over to Dark North Immortal and said, "Count it. If the number is correct, we'll need to go somewhere else." Chapter 1266. Dark North Immortal didn't fully trust Tan Xiao, but he didn't check it at all and directly put away the interspatial ring. He believed that Tan Xiao wouldn't deceive him about this matter because the immortal sword, combat robe, and other weapons Tan Xiao ordered were still in the hands of his Aurelian Artificer sect. "Where are you going, Great Tang Immortal friend? Do you want me to send someone to accompany you?" Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "No need to trouble yourself. I paid 200,000 immortal crystals to your sect, so I'm now poor. So the Clearwater clan should be nearby, right? Let's go there and have a look. I hope the Clearwater clan isn't as poor as us." A glint flashed in Dark North Immortal's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "Great Tang Immortal friend, my Aurelian Artificer sect won't intervene too much if you want to go somewhere else. But I hope you can give my sect a chance to take revenge by going to the Clearwater clan. You can rest assured that all the wealth we get from the Clearwater clan will be yours." Tan Xiao frowned and said, "Your Aurelian Artificer sect needs to go all out in refining artifacts. If my sect has a total of 4 golden immortal ancestors," said Dark North Immortal. "It won't take too much time for them to go with you. Half a month's time is enough." Tan Xiao thought for a while and nodded. "We won't stop you since you want to take revenge. Let's go together. All the wealth we get from the Clearwater clan will be handed over to your sect. You only need to give us weapons of the same value." "Good." Dark North Immortal smiled with satisfaction. He hated the Clearwater clan. After all, he almost died in their hands. Even if he couldn't kill the Clearwater clan's clansmen this time, it would be the same to send several sword immortal ancestors. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression shifted and he looked at Gu Yan and said, "Yan, why don't you go with the Aurelian Artificer sect's ancestors? I'll stay here and refine some things." Gu Yan would never refute Tan Xiao's decision. She nodded with a smile and said, "Then wait for my good news here, master." In the end, Gu Yan and the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect left together, while Tan Xiao stayed in the Aurelian Artificer sect under the warm hospitality of Dark North Immortal. Crimson Cliff Cave. This was the residence of the Aurelian Artificer sect's sect master for a long time, and it was also the best place to forge artifacts. This cave had earth vein magma, and there was even a small amount of 9-yang purple flame born from the earth vein magma. Thus, it was the best place to forge artifacts. With the same materials and the same artifact refiner in the Scarlet Cliff Cave, the quality of the immortal artifact refined using the 9-yang purple flame would be at least a level higher. By right, the ironclad rule of the Aurelian Artificer sect was that the Red Cliff Cave would never be open to outsiders. But after discussions between Dark North Immortal and the 4 ancestors, They finally decided to provide it to Tan Xiao for refining. There were 3 reasons for this. The first was that the Aurelian Artificer sect's best artifact refinement manual was given to them by the ancestors, fabricated by Tan Xiao. The second reason was that Tan Xiao had saved Dark North Immortal and Dark North Everblithe's lives. The third reason was that they wanted to see Tan Xiao's artifact refinement level. Inside the blazing Scarlet Cliff Cave, Tan Xiao was guided by Dark North Immortal to tour the place, and then got a list of refining materials. When Dark North Immortal received the list of materials for crafting tools, there was only a wry smile on his face. No other expression could replace it. Lucid Sky Sand, Pure Gold Sand, and Azure Pring Tendon. These 3 refining materials are all extremely precious and rare treasures. Let alone my Aurelian Artificer sect. I'm afraid that even the entire extraterrestrial Milky Way doesn't have these 3 materials. Great Tang Immortal friend. I wonder if it's possible to replace them with other materials? Dark North Immortal felt his face burning and asked with a wry smile. He suddenly recalled the records of the sect's history. In the past, the mysterious powerhouse, who was also the ancestor of this great Tang Heavenly Emperor, also needed some refining materials. But the elders of his Aurelian Artificer sect didn't give them to him at all. Some of these materials were even unheard of. A disappointed look flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he said, "Take me to see what materials your Aurelian Artificer sect has. Don't let me see the ordinary trash." Dark North Immortal hesitated for a moment, but he finally nodded. Although his Aurelian Artificer sect did have several extremely precious refining materials, the value of those materials was also so high that it made one's heart tremble. He felt that Tan Xiao wouldn't seize the precious materials of his Aurelian Artificer sect for no reason. It was a kind of trust and self-confidence. "Come with me." Dark North Immortal took a deep breath. After walking for hundreds of meters, he stopped in front of the wall of the cave. As he cast a spell, the tightly stitched wall soon split open, revealing a corridor leading to the front. The corridor wasn't very spacious, but it was wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side. Inside, it was a secret chamber. When Tan Xiao appeared at the door of the secret chamber, his eyes swept over the dozen transparent light shields. A surprised look immediately appeared on his handsome face. Eventually, his eyes fell on a football-sized ore in the corner of the room. The ore exuded a yellow radiance and he couldn't move his eyes away anymore. Earth core. Tan Xiao's footsteps involuntarily moved toward it. When he stood in front of the light shield, he murmured. Dark North Immortal looked puzzled. He looked at Tan Xiao and asked, "Do you know what this material is, Great Tang Immortal friend?" Tan Xiao turned his head with difficulty and looked at the confused Dark North Immortal. Then he asked incredulously, "You don't know what this material is?" "No, I don't." Dark North Immortal shook his head and forced a smile. "Not only me, but the 4 ancestors of my sect also don't know about it. To be honest, this thing has a very strong compatibility. Even if 2 materials of the cold attribute and the yang attribute are put together to refine artifacts, it will still have excellent compatibility and harmonization. Therefore, we concluded that this is a very precious ore, so we put it here as a treasure." Tan Xiao felt helpless inwardly. In the eyes of the Aurelian Artificer sect, this kind of supreme treasure could only play a role of compatibility and harmonization. It was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. It was the Earth core. Only a planet with an abnormally rich Earth attribute would undergo the baptism of hundreds of millions of years, and eventually form its origin essence. Once the Earth core was formed, there would definitely be immortals on that planet who would break through and become gods. In other words, it was the companion of gods. This thing, once it appeared in the eyes of the immortals who knew about it, it was bound to set off a bloody storm in the immortal world. Even terrifying supremes would participate in the crazy scramble for it. If Tan Xiao had such a big piece of the Earth core in the past, he wouldn't have fallen even if he was ambushed by those supremes. Perhaps he could even get a chance to turn the situation around. "Great Tang Immortal friend, you haven't told me yet. What exactly is this thing?" asked Dark North Immortal curiously. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and solemnly said, "This thing is an excellent treasure. Even some terrifying bigwigs want to have it. Dark North Immortal, I hope you can sell it to me if possible." This, Dark North Immortal looked embarrassed and forced a smile. Great Tang Immortal friend. Our sect doesn't have many precious materials. Besides, we also need this thing to refine some immortal artifacts, else we won't be able to refine them. You're making things difficult for me. Tan Xiu gave it a thought and said, everything has a price. It's just a matter of how much it's worth. I don't want to hide it from you. This thing is very precious, but it's a complete waste in your hands. So, you might as well sell it to me. I'm willing to pay a high price for it. A high price? Dark North Immortal forced a smile. You don't seem to have any immortal stones or crystals, do you? Do you want to barter it with something else? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment. Then he quickly took out an interspatial ring and said, there are 500,000 immortal crystals in this ring. It's the most wealth I can take out now. If you think it's not enough, I still have 20 million immortal stones, which should be worth 200,000 immortal crystals. This wealth should be enough to buy it. A shocked look appeared on Dark North Immortal's face. He stared blankly at Tan Xiu and incredulously said, what the hell have you been doing these past few months? How can you take out so many immortal stones and crystals? Don't tell me, you looted the treasure vault of a super sect? We got some auric perfusion sources and sold them to the Celestial Vine Pavilion, said Tan Xiu. You should know the price of the auric perfusion sources. Dark North Immortal's expression changed and he hurriedly asked, the auric perfusion sources? You actually obtained the auric perfusion source? And you even got several of them? Heavens! This is the most precious treasure that all immortals yearn for. Even in our immortal domain, you can't buy it even if you have the money. A strange light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes and he asked, do you need the auric perfusion sources? I do. Of course I do. Dark North Immortal said aloud. If I can get this auric perfusion sources, I'm sure I can break through to the late-stage golden immortal stage within the next 1,000 years. I even have a glimmer of hope to break through to the perfected golden immortal stage. Great Tang Immortal friend. You, how could you sell such a precious treasure? If you can give me one auric perfusion sources, I'm willing to buy it even if I have to spend all my money. Tan Xiu asked with a strange expression. Do you think the auric perfusion sources are more important? Or 700,000 immortal crystals? Of course it's the auric perfusion sources, answered Dark North Immortal without hesitation. We can always find ways to earn more immortal crystals, but it's very difficult to buy more auric perfusion sources if we lose them. Tan Xiu knew that the auric perfusion sources were a huge temptation to weaker immortals, but he never thought that the temptation would be so great. Suddenly, he felt that the price he sold it to the Celestial Vine Pavilion seemed to be too low. He shook his head. Tan Xiu threw the thought out of his mind and looked at Dark North Immortal. I won't take advantage of you. I'll give you 2 auric perfusion sources in exchange for this thing. How about it? What? Dark North Immortal was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu still had the auric perfusion sources. The most important thing was that he had already said that the auric perfusion sources were more important than 700,000 immortal crystals in his eyes. Yet this guy was willing to trade 2 of them with him? The immortal world was originally going to end at the end of this month, but my brothers and sisters strongly urged me to write more stories about the immortal world. After thinking about it again and again, I decided to write another 300,000 words and finish it next month. I'll ask my brothers and sisters to support me with your monthly votes. I'll be eternally grateful. _. Chapter 1267. Dark North Immortal was a bit moved all of a sudden. He shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and didn't want to hypocritically decline, so he solemnly said, I, Dark North Immortal, will always keep your friendship and righteousness in mind. If you need anything in the future, you only need to tell me. This Dark North Immortal will go through fire and water for you even if I have to risk my life. After saying that, he took out a token from his interspatial ring and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying again, This is my Aurelian Artificer Sect's Heart Inquisition token. Whether it's you or your relatives or friends, as long as you bring this token to my sect in the future, you can ask all the disciples of my sect to help you with one thing. Even if it's dangerous and we have to pay a heavy price, My sect's disciples will never refuse it. Tan Xiao took the Heart Inquisition token and quietly observed it for a while before solemnly putting it into his interspatial ring. Although he knew very well that he wouldn't be able to ask for help from the Aurelian Artificer sect in the future, he didn't want to refuse Dark North Immortal's kind intention. Shortly after, Tan Xiao put away the Earth Heart, and then gave the 2 auric perfusion source to Dark North Immortal. Dark North Immortal's heart was stirred up and he said, "Great Tang Immortal friend, this secret chamber contains all the precious refining materials of my sect. You can choose any 3 of them. Consider it as a gift from us." As the saying goes, the hand that gives roses has a lingering fragrance. Tan Xiao knew that Dark North Immortal wanted to thank him, but he was a bit embarrassed inside because the value of the Earth Heart was far from what the 2 auric perfusion source could compare to. Forget it. I owe the Aurelian Artificer sect a favor. If the sect needs anything in the future, I'll fulfill their wish. Tan Xiao took a deep breath and observed the dozens of materials again. Finally, he chose 3 of them and then left the secret chamber with Dark North Immortal and went to the Scarlet Cliff Cave outside. "Great Tang Immortal friend, do you want to use my usual refining furnace?" asked Dark North Immortal. "Or your own crafting furnace?" asked Dark North Immortal. Tan Xiao said, "I'll use my own." Dark North Immortal nodded in response, and cast a few immortal seals to store the crafting furnace inside the Scarlet Cliff Cavern into his interspatial ring. Then he said, "Great Tang Immortal friend, if my Aurelian Artificer sect has the materials you want to refine, feel free to send someone to get them for you. I need to go into seclusion. When the Celestial Sword, Battle Robe, and the other weapons are finished, I will come out of seclusion to meet you." "All right." Tan Xiao nodded. He wanted to forge the Rainbow Cloud Robe. Even though the crafting school didn't have enough precious materials, he decided to go to the nearest city to buy them. He was confident that he could refine 20 Rainbow Clouds robes during his time in the Aurelian Artificer sect. After a while, Tan Xiao listed out the supplementary materials he needed to refine the Rainbow Cloud clothes, and then he left the Crimson Cliff Cave. He'd just arrived outside the cave when he saw a tall and sturdy female warrior looking down at him with a bashful smile. "These are the materials I need. I have both types and quantities. It's best to prepare them for me within 3 days. Your sect leader is already in seclusion and shouldn't be coming out anytime soon. If your Aurelian Artificer sect has anything to do, wait for your 4 clan elders to come back and let them take charge." Tan Xiao passed the list to the other party and left without looking back. Being looked down upon by a female giant, he didn't feel good. But his height was a problem. Unless he used his celestial power to change his bones and increase his height, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to compete with this female giant who was at least 2.5 meters tall. Immortal Seeking City. After Tan Xiao arrived here alone, he blended into the crowd on the wide street. With his experience, it was a piece of cake for him to mingle around in this kind of cultivation city. However, he was here to buy materials and didn't want to cause trouble. So he quickly found a young man with a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks at the entrance of an alley, but his eyes were lively and he looked very shrewd. "Master, what can I do for you?" The young man looked at Tan Xiao a few times and concluded that the young man in front of him was definitely a big fat sheep. Therefore he approached him and asked with a smile, "Are you very familiar with Immortal Seeking City?" asked Tan Xiao indifferently. The young man puffed out his chest and patted his hands as he confidently said, "There's no place in the entire Immortal Seeking City that I, Dragon Broker, am not familiar with. As long as you tell me your needs, Master, I guarantee that I can be a perfect guide. I need to buy some materials for refining. Take me there," Tan Xiao said lightly. "Remember, I won't mistreat you if your service can satisfy me." Dragon Broker blinked and immediately said with a smile, "Master, you can go to the Seacom Street Materials store if you want to buy ordinary refining materials. There are 108 material stores there with all kinds of refining materials. Of course, if your luck is heaven-defying, you can still find treasures in those low-grade goods. If you want to buy precious materials, you need to go to Fragrant River Road. There are 360 material stores there, and all of them are fine products. You can buy the refining materials you need as long as you have the money." Go to Fragrant River Road, said Tanxiu. Dragon Broker squinted his eyes and his smile was wider than before. He nodded and bowed and said, Master, I can tell that you're not an ordinary person at first glance. Even an immortal can't compare with you. Let's go. Among the 360 material stores, the top ones are Golden Hall and Immortal Material Store. However, Golden Hall does business with immortals. Even if ordinary people enter, they can only look at it. As for the Immortal Materials Store, although its name is awesome, there's no limit to the number of customers. Let's go to Golden Hall, said Tanxiu. Dragon Broker's skinny body suddenly trembled. He looked at Tanxiu in amazement and hurriedly said respectfully, Yes, yes, yes. I'll take you to Golden Hall right away. Master, since you're a high and mighty immortal, you must remember one thing. There's no bargaining in Golden Hall. All the refining materials are priced at the same price. Once you open your mouth to negotiate the price, you'll be left out in the cold. Tanxiu nodded slightly. Under the guidance of Dragon Broker, it took them half a day to arrive at Golden Hall. It was a large classical pavilion with a height of 100 meters and an area of several kilometers. It was richly ornamented and magnificent. Just by standing outside, it was not difficult to see that this material store was of a high grade. Welcome, honorable guest. A young man dressed like a manservant in a black battle robe greeted him with a smile. His sharp eyes merely swept over Dragon Broker and didn't look at him again. I need to buy several refining materials. This is the name and quantity of the materials I need, said Tanxiu indifferently. If you have them, we can trade immediately. The manservant took the list and glanced at it a few times. He suddenly looked surprised and said, We do have Skynet sand and pure gold tendon, but the price is very expensive. As for the dark rock tendon, we don't have it in our store because such a treasure will be crazily snatched once it is placed in the store. Where can I get this material? Asked Tanxiu with a nod. I don't know the specifics because our Golden Hall has never sold this material. The manservant shook his head. However, there is a material in our store that is similar to the dark rock tendon. It's even a bit better. You see, what kind of material is it? Asked Tanxiu in surprise. The dragon snake tendon, answered the manservant. Tanxiu immediately looked satisfied and nodded. The dragon snake tendon is indeed better than the dark rock tendon, and it has the same effect in refining weapons. Then I'll buy it. What's the total value of these materials and quantity I want? Senior, will you pay with immortal stones? Asked the manservant. Or immortal crystals? Give me immortal crystals, answered Tanxiu. The manservant nodded and quickly cast a spell to pass the message. A few minutes later, 3 ordinary immortals arrived with 3 kinds of materials. These 3 materials are all top grade, with a total value of 560,000 immortal crystals, said the burly man in the lead. Tanxiu checked the 3 materials. After confirming that there were no errors, he took the immortal crystals from his interspatial ring and put them into another empty interspatial ring. Then he handed them to the man and said, 560,000 immortal crystals. The burly man smiled after checking them and said, Welcome back, honored guest. Tanxiu put away the 3 materials and didn't stay here for a long time. Although he still wanted to buy a lot of refining materials, he still had 240,000 immortal crystals left. He needed to pay for the teleportation array and leave some for the soldiers of the Great Tang Empire. He went out of the door. Tanxiu took out an immortal crystal and threw it to Dragon Broker. Is there any other interesting place in Immortal Seek City? Dragon Broker looked excited. He was just a nobody who hadn't even reached the nascent soul stage. Usually he could only get a few immortal stones even if he was a guide. This was the first time he got an immortal crystal as a reward. One must know that an immortal crystal was equivalent to 100 immortal stones. Yet Tanxiu gave him 200 immortal stones in one go. How rich and overbearing. After Dragon Broker labeled Tanxiu, a smile bloomed on his monkey-like face and he said flatteringly, Yes, yes, yes. There are too many interesting places in Immortal Seek City. But what kind of interesting place do you want to go, sir? Tanxiu thought for a while and asked, Is there any convict arena in this Immortal Seek City? The convict arena? Dragon Broker couldn't help but shudder. He hesitated for a while and then said with a wry smile. Yes, but that place is too bloody. What kind of place do you want to go, sir? Tanshio nodded and said, That's right. I'm lacking some attendance recently, so I'm going to buy some. Let's go. You'll get more benefits later as long as the place you take me to satisfies me. Upon hearing this, Dragon Broker's spirit was shaken and he hurriedly said, Please come with me, sir. I know the most terrifying place in Immortal Seek City, the convict arena. There are countless ferocious people there. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Are there immortals there? Asked Tanshio. Yes. You can even have golden immortal gladiators there as long as you have the money, answered Dragon Broker. Tanshio's eyes lit up and he immediately said with satisfaction, Let's go. I have other things to do later, so I don't have much time. Chapter 1268. Generally, every large city in the immortal world had a convict arena. It was similar to the gladiator arenas on Earth, full of cruelty and blood. Every deathmatch gladiator was a slave whose fate was in the hands of others. They only had two ways to survive. The first was to kill their opponents in the convict arena, and the second was to be fancied by a rich man and be bought. Immortal Seek City. This city could only be regarded as a medium-sized city in the immortal world, but it had a convict arena due to its geographical location. After all, this immortal domain was much more barren than the other prosperous immortal domains, hence the number of desperados here. Master, it's just ahead. Dragon Broker nodded and bowed as he followed Tanshio. After half a day's journey, they arrived outside a pitch-black, 1,000-meter-high black castle. Even with Tanshio's terrifying eyesight, he found that he couldn't see the end of this castle. The scale of this place doesn't seem small, no? Asked Tanshio. You're right, Dragon Broker said. This lowly one may not have been to other cities, but I've heard a lot about it. Rumor has it that the scale of the convict arena in those large cities is not as big as the Immortal Seek City. Hence, many gamblers from other immortal domains come here to gamble. You seem to know the convict arena very well. Do you often go there to play? Tanshio lightly smiled. This lowly one is poor and destitute. It's not easy for me to barely make a living, so where would I find the spare money to play? It's just that a lot of outsiders come here to gamble and still need us as guides. I've accompanied a lot of gamblers to this place and I've seen some people suddenly become rich, but I've also seen more people lose money and become penniless. So what? Asked Tanshio with a playful smile. So I don't dare to go there, said Dragon Broker bitterly. Every investor that comes to me, I've always cautiously advised them not to gamble there. Tanshio patted his shoulder and gave him a pill. Then he lightly smiled and said, You're not bad. At least you don't have a bad heart. Let's go. It's been a long time since I went to the convict arena to play. Let's go gamble a few rounds today, and try to win the money to buy the deathmatch. Dragon Broker stared blankly at the pill in his hand, a warm feeling surging in his heart. His expression was very complicated because he had served tens of thousands of potential customers, but he had never met such a generous customer. Sir, how should I address you? You can call me Lord Great Tang, said Tanshio calmly. I'm not qualified to advise you, Sir Great Tang. Dragon Broker heavily nodded and said, But for the sake of this pill, I hope you won't play too big. There are countless immortals who have lost miserably in the convict arena. I understand. A little gambling is fun. Tanshio nodded calmly. His eyes swept across the dozens of burly men guarding outside the 100-meter-high gate. To his surprise, the leader of these men was a golden immortal expert. Welcome. Would you like to rent a chariot? A dragon lady with a horn on her head asked with a smile as she swayed her slender waist. How much does it cost? Asked Tanshio. An ordinary chariot costs 10 immortal stones, while a high-end chariot costs 100 immortal stones, said the dragon lady. Each chariot can be used indefinitely, so it won't be a problem even if the two of you want to stay inside for thousands of years. Tanshio took out 100 immortal stones and handed them to her, saying, How about a high-end chariot? Having said that, he then turned to look at Dragon Broker and asked, You control it? Understood. Dragon Broker looked a bit surprised. He liked to control chariots very much and had done it countless times in the past. He felt that it was much more enjoyable than riding a flying sword. As the two of them picked a boat-shaped chariot, Tanshio boarded it and saw Dragon Broker skillfully controlling it as they flew inside. The inside space was filled with open stalls on both sides of the straight road. Each of the stalls sold weapons, pills, talismans, and so on. As long as it was a common item in the immortal world, everything was available. Tanshio had been to this kind of place countless times, so he naturally knew that the items sold in these stalls were almost all aimed at cultivators. Generally speaking, powerhouses who had broken through to the immortal stage would never buy things from such low-grade stalls. However, immortals were too lazy to look at things. Yet he was in great need of them. After all, almost none of the people in the Great Tang Empire had broken through to the immortal stage, and the items sold here were very useful to them. Dragon Broker, introduce me to a stall. The price must be fair and the items must be complete, said Tanshio calmly. What do you need to buy, Sir Great Tang? Asked Dragon Broker hesitantly. Do you have a specific number? I need pills, talismans, weapons, refining materials, and medicinal herbs suitable for nascent soul stage cultivators, said Tanshio. The quantity should be enough for hundreds of thousands of cultivators to use for 100 years. Gasp! Dragon Broker's eyes turned as big as a bell, and he exclaimed in horror, so much. Tanshio slightly smiled and said, if you help me with this, I'll give you 10 immortal crystals as a reward when we leave this place. 10 immortal crystals? Dragon Broker's body trembled, and he immediately looked pleasantly surprised. It must be noted that 10 immortal crystals were equivalent to 1,000 immortal stones, which was enough for him to use for several years. You can rest assured, Sir Great Tang. I promise to do it well for you and buy the most resources with the least amount of immortal stones. Dragon Broker patted his chest and guaranteed. Shortly after, the duo didn't rush to the convict prison, but spent 4 days shopping. When Tanshio had spent 20 million immortal stones, the cultivation resources that were enough for more than 200,000 people in the Great Tang Empire to use for 100 years had all been prepared. Dragon Broker had never been as excited as he was in the past 4 days. The feeling of spending money like flowing water made his blood boil all the time. He looked at Tanshio as though he was a god. Huff! When the duo came out of a stall, Dragon Broker heaved a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat on his forehead. Then he respectfully said, Sir Great Tang, are we going to the convict prison next? Take me to the highest level convict prison, said Tanshio. If you want to enter the highest level convict prison, you need to prove the wealth of the gamblers, said Dragon Broker. The minimum guarantee is 10,000 immortal crystals. Tanshio nodded and said, there's no limit to this threshold for us. Let's go. Understood. Dragon Broker had seen Tanshio spending in the past few days and naturally knew that Tanshio had a lot of immortal stones and crystals. Therefore, after taking them to the deepest part of the convict prison, he said to the guard outside, you too, we know the rules. Tanshio handed over an interspatial ring. After the guard verified it, he respectfully invited the duo inside. The convict prison. It was an independent space that covered an area of hundreds of kilometers and had a height of nearly 1,000 meters. It was like the arena on Earth, surrounded by spectator seats that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. The center of the space was a 200-kilometer range where the deathmatch gladiators participated in the fight. At this moment, there were already thousands of gamblers in the spectator seats. All of them had ferocious expressions as they stared at the two people fighting in the ring. They were not pure humans, nor were they pure immortals. One of them was a leopard-headed expert with an earth immortal stage cultivation. His naked upper body was wrapped with fine iron chains, and he wielded an immortal long saber that transformed into layers of saber shadows. The other one was a winged man with a human appearance, but 2 pairs of wings. His wings flapped and a flaming saber shadow suddenly bombarded each other. Tanshio casually found a place to sit down and calmly watched the fight between the 2 earth immortals. With his vision, he could easily tell that the leopard-headed earth immortal with fine iron chains had fallen into a disadvantageous position. It wouldn't take long for him to be killed by his opponent. Dragon Broker didn't accompany Tanshio to sit down. and instead slipped away to the nearby area. There was a row of iron cages on the north side, each with an Immortal stage powerhouse inside. Outside the iron cages were clearly marked prices, along with the cultivation information of these deathmatch gladiators, as well as the introduction of their fighting records. Shortly after, as the leopard-headed Earth Immortal was killed, Dragon Broker slipped back from the distance and stopped next to Tan Xiao. Then he whispered, "Sir Great Tang, I just heard that there will be 4 high-level fights 3 days later. There will be a total of 8 golden Immortal deathmatch gladiators. Only 4 of them will win, and the other 4 will be killed in the convict prison's cage. At that time, more than a dozen Immortal domains will come to participate in the big gamble." A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he nodded and said, "If so, then let's play here for 2 days and then use the money we win to buy some cultivation resources from those high-end shops." "Sir Great Tang, can you guarantee that you'll win?" asked Dragon Broker hurriedly. "There's a local saying that goes, 'Don't take up porcelain work if you don't have a diamond or diamond.'" Tan Xiao nodded. "I wouldn't have come here if I didn't have self-confidence. Of course, you can also think that I'm arrogant. But since I've already made up my mind, let's have some fun." Saying, he handed an interspatial ring to Dragon Broker and lightly said, "There's a total of 100,000 Immortal crystals inside. Help me place the bet later." T100,000 Immortal crystals? Dragon Broker shivered and said with a bit of fear, "Sir Great Tang, don't you think you're playing too much? There are so many Immortal crystals, just in case." "You don't need to question my decision," said Tan Xiao lightly. "You just need to obey me absolutely. If you're not up to the task of accompanying me, I can replace you." Yes, I'll listen to you." Dragon Broker's expression changed and he immediately realized that he talked too much. After receiving the interspatial ring with 100,000 Immortal crystals, he stood beside Tan Xiao and waited for the start of the next duel, as well as the start of the big gamble. Chapter 1269. About half an hour later, 2 cool-looking deathmatch gladiators were brought into the convict arena's cage. The white-robed handsome golden Immortal powerhouse slightly bowed with a smile and said, "I'm the prison convict, and I'm the 8th match today. A crystal race expert versus a feather race expert. Guests who are participating in this gamble can go and exchange their wagers." Having said that, he didn't stay and quickly left the convict arena's cage. In the auditorium, Dragon Broker bowed and whispered to Tan Xiao, "Sir Great Tang, that crystal expert is just an ordinary Immortal, while the feather expert has just entered the Earth Immortal stage. The fact that the convict arena's people put them in the same group shows that this crystal expert is very powerful, and may be comparable to an Earth Immortal. However, it's also possible that the convict arena's people deliberately used a smokescreen. After all, a gap of a whole realm is not that easy to make up for." "You just went around to memorize the information of these deathmatch gladiators, didn't you?" Tan Xiao chuckled. "Well, it's because I need to serve you, so I naturally have to understand the information of these deathmatch gladiators. However, I'll only tell you their information and won't interfere with your judgment and decision." Tan Xiao slowly nodded. Despite his keen eyesight, the crystal expert and the feather expert had yet to fight, so he couldn't judge their strength at the moment. "Tell me about their past records." Dragon Broker told Tan Xiao about the records of the 2 combatants. He had a very good memory, so he could directly recite the records of the 2 combatants. After reciting it, he said, "Sir Great Tang, I'm afraid you'll need to personally record the information of all the deathmatch gladiators if you want to keep gambling. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until the start of each duel before making a judgment. I'm afraid it won't be very comprehensive if you hastily consider it." Tan Xiao gently nodded, and kept recalling the records of the 2 combatants in his mind. After 10 minutes, he said, "Go exchange the gambling deed and bet all of it on that crystal gladiator." 100,000 Immortal crystals? Dragon Broker felt his throat was a bit dry and hesitantly asked. Tan Xiao said, "Yes, 100,000 Immortal crystals." Dragon Broker knew that Tan Xiao was rich and overbearing, but he didn't expect Tan Xiao to be so careless. It should be noted that it was definitely not a wise move for him to bet 100,000 immortal crystals on the crystal race deathmatch gladiator after hearing the results of the two of them. However, he didn't dare to persuade him because his previous persuasion had already caused the other party's dissatisfaction. Helpless, he could only go to the exchange counter and exchange for a bet of 100,000 immortal crystals. The convict arena was actually the banker here. Regardless of whether they won or lost, the convict arena would still be the one paying. However, the loser would lose all the money he had exchanged for the bet, while the winner could double the amount of money he had bet. For example, if Tan Xiu won this gamble, he would be able to win 100,000 immortal crystals. Shortly after, Dragon Broker took the bet representing 100,000 immortal crystals and returned to Tan Xiu. After handing over the bet to Tan Xiu, he respectfully said, "Sir Great Tang, you can go to the exchange counter to exchange for immortal crystals if you win in the end. Also, there's still half an hour before the fight begins. Would you like to check the information of the two deathmatch gladiators?" Tan Xiu thought for a while before getting up and saying, "It's all right to go and have a look. I don't want to waste time here." Having said that, after that, Tan Xiu left the auditorium. However, he didn't directly look at the information of the two deathmatch gladiators, but started from one end and read the cages in order. In just half an hour, he had seen nearly 100 deathmatch gladiators and read all their information. "Sir Great Tang, the deathmatch has begun. Don't we need to go back to the auditorium?" Dragon Broker really couldn't figure out Tan Xiu's thoughts. After hesitating for a while, he lowered his voice and asked, "Let's go to the auditorium and enjoy the fight after reading the information of all the deathmatch gladiators," said Tan Xiu lightly. "You can go back to the auditorium and watch the fight yourself if you feel bored accompanying me." Dragon Broker thought for a while and finally said honestly, "I'd better accompany you, Sir Great Tang. I can also run some errands for you if you encounter a deathmatch gladiator you like and want to buy one." "All right," Tan Xiu replied casually and continued to walk forward. There were more than 200 deathmatch gladiators in this prison cage. When Tan Xiu saw 140 of them, the fight between the crystal race and the feather race came to an end, and the final winner was the crystal race's deathmatch gladiators. He won. Dragon Broker was so excited that his body trembled a bit. Although he wasn't the one who participated in the gamble, Tan Xiu easily won 100,000 immortal crystals, which was an eye-opener for him. Perhaps the more immortal crystals Tan Xiu won, the more rewards he would get in the end. Tan Xiu seemed not to have heard Dragon Broker's words. At this moment, he was standing in front of a huge iron cage, looking at a thin and blood-stained Catwoman inside. Her appearance was very beautiful. Other than a few shallow horizontal lines on her cheeks, she only had a short tail, which had obviously been chopped off by someone. Other than that, there was no difference between her and a human. Whenever Tan Xiu approached the other deathmatch gladiators, they would always see Tan Xiu with a ferocious expression or a malicious look in their eyes. But this Catwoman didn't. Her eyes were full of numbness, without the slightest luster. Her expression was dull, and she was indifferent even though she realized that someone was looking at her outside. Déjà vu. Tan Xiu's brows were deeply furrowed and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. The first time he saw this Catwoman, he felt that she was familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before. But when he searched his memory, he really couldn't remember. "Little kitty, stand up and turn around a few times," Tan Xiu suddenly said. The Catwoman's dull eyes suddenly focused. When she turned her head and saw Tan Xiu, she was slightly startled. Then, she blinked her blue eyes and suddenly sprinted toward Tan Xiu like a bolt of lightning. It wasn't until her hands grabbed the iron cage that she stared at Tan Xiu and sniffed with her nose. Half a quarter of an hour. Her pupils suddenly shrank. The moment she let go of the iron cage, she staggered backward and then slumped to the ground. It must be noted that she was a celestial immortal expert, but because of the shock, she lost control of her mind and sat there paralyzed. "You." Her voice was a bit hoarse, as if her throat had been seriously damaged. But she only uttered a word and swallowed the rest of her words back into her stomach. Crystal clear tears covered her shocked eyes. Under Tan Xiu's gaze, she slowly lay down sideways. As big drops of tears fell, Her blood-stained fingers gently curled up and made a scratching gesture. Chinchilla? Tan Xiu's body trembled and disbelief filled his eyes. He stared blankly at the Catwoman who repeatedly made the same gesture, and his heart fiercely twitched a few times. Show me your lower abdomen. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice. The Catwoman slowly crawled up and gently lifted her ragged clothes. When the shocking scar appeared in Tang Xiu's line of sight, he keenly saw a subtle black line on the scarred abdomen of the Catwoman. At this moment, Tan Xiu tightly clenched his fists. His murderous eyes fell on Dragon Broker as he said in a deep voice, I want her. Tell the person in charge of the convict arena that I'll buy her no matter the price. Dragon Broker didn't notice the strange look between Tan Xiu and the Catwoman just now. He was still immersed in the joy of Tan Xiu's winning 100,000 immortal crystals. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, he observed the Catwoman a few times before replying and dashing toward the exchange counter. Half a quarter of an hour. Dragon Broker arrived with an old man with a goatee and a gray Taoist robe. Fellow Immortal, are you the one who wants to buy this gladiator? The old man had a benevolent smile on his face. He stroked his goatee as he spoke. Is it the price above? Asked Tan Xiu. That's right. You can buy this gladiator for 420,000 immortal crystals, said the old man with a smile. Tan Xiu handed him the gambling contract, and then took out 220,000 immortal crystals from his interspatial ring. He put them in another ring and handed them to the old man, saying, 420,000 immortal crystals. She's mine. The old man let out a faint smile, and took out a strange-looking key to unlock the chain on the iron cage. He then handed a jade token to Tan Xiu and said, This is her natal soul essence. Her life is in your hands from now on. Tan Xiu waved his hand and watched the old man leave. Then, a true fire appeared in his palm, and the jade token was instantly burned by him. However, he injected a transparent soul essence into the Catwoman's body. Sir Great Tang. Dragon Broker looked horrified as though he had just seen the most incredible thing in the world. It must be noted that every gladiator was a ruthless character. Unless they had the natal soul essence in their hands, it would be terrible if they were to kill their master. Tan Xiu took out 20 immortal crystals and handed them to Dragon Broker, saying, You don't need to stay with me anymore from now on. These immortal crystals are your reward. If I don't take the initiative to find you, you'll disappear from my sight forever. Dragon Broker shuddered inwardly. After hesitating for a while, he took the 20 immortal crystals with a bit of regret and left at an extremely fast speed. Tan Xiu then took out a robe from his interspatial ring and came to the Catwoman. He personally draped it over her and said softly, You've suffered a lot. Big drops of tears flowed out of the Catwoman's eyes. She shook her head desperately and gently hugged Tan Xiu, not letting go for a long time. After a long while, Tan Xiu gently patted her shoulder, and then took out a springtime elixir. He stuffed it into her mouth and said, Stay with me. I'll take you home after staying here for a few days. Chapter 1270. Catgirl was a chinchilla, but she was not a rat-like creature like those on Earth. Instead, she was a descendant of the Dragon Clan and the Cat Clan, possessing both the dragon and cat bloodlines. As far as Tan Xiu knew, the number of chinchillas in the entire immortal world was definitely no more than 3 digits. Once upon a time, Tan Xiu once owned a chinchilla, which was an immortal fate and also a favor. Catgirl gently grabbed Tan Xiu's arm with a pleading look in her eyes and said, Master, can you buy the furious lion roar? He once saved me and deliberately spared my life in the convict arena's cage. Furious lion roar? Follow me. Tan Xiu nodded. Along the way, Tang Xiu read the information of the remaining nearly 100 deathmatch gladiators, and their information. Finally, he stopped in front of a bearded lion man with exuberant golden fur. The lion man didn't threaten Tan Xiu, but smiled when he saw Catgirl following Tan Xiu. 1.2 million immortal crystals? Profound immortal stage? After reading his score, Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and indifferently said, Just wait, I'll take you away from here. After saying that, he returned to the auditorium with Catgirl. As a new round of fighting was about to begin, Tanxiu took out 100,000 immortal crystals and handed them to Catgirl, saying, "Bet on Hulk." Alright. Catgirl left for a while, and quickly returned to Tanxiu's side, and handed the gambling deed representing 100,000 immortal crystals to Tanxiu. "Take it," Tanxiu calmly said. The battle started quickly and ended quickly, with Hulk finally winning. In the next 2 days, Tanxiu gambled a total of 6 times, and the 100,000 immortal crystals kept doubling. In the end, the number of immortal crystals he had reached 6.4 million. It's about time. Tanxiu took a deep breath and returned to the iron cage where the Lion Man was. After paying the person in charge of the convict arena 1.2 million immortal crystals, he bought the Lion Man. After the old man left, Tanxiu looked at the Lion Man again and seriously said, "I'll give you 2 choices now. First, I'll return your life token to you and you can leave. Second, follow me in the future, but you must clearly explain your past, and I will control your life tablet. There are 2 choices, and I need an answer now." The Lion Man knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "I would have died here sooner or later if you hadn't saved me. You saved my life. You are my benefactor. But I want to leave. I will repay your kindness 10-fold, 100-fold in the future." Tanxiu handed him his life token and lightly said, "Everyone has their own aspirations. Since you've chosen to leave, I won't force you to follow me. As for your kindness, I don't need you to repay me." The Lion Man didn't speak again. After receiving the life token, he bowed to Tanxiu and then quickly left. He didn't ask why Tanxiu saved him, since he could faintly guess that it might be a request from the Catgirl. In short, he would remember this kindness in his heart, and he would look for his benefactor after he completed a major task. Tanxiu watched his back disappear into the distance, and then turned to look at the Catgirl. Due to the unexpected encounter, Tanxiu decided to leave this place. After all, he had gained quite a lot this time and didn't plan to earn more immortal crystals here. After all, he didn't dare to guarantee that he would win every gamble. It was better to be safe than sorry. If he made a mistake, he would lose all his gains. Quickly, Tanxiu took the Catgirl to the Aurelian Artificer sect. After the two entered the lava cave, Tanxiu asked, "Catgirl, you haven't transformed yet when I left the immortal world. I know some things about the immortal world later, but not much. Tell me what happened to you." "I heard that you failed to cross your divinity tribulation, Master," said the Catgirl. "Then your 2 friends occupied our place and sent a lot of powerhouses to kill and plunder. I didn't transform at that time, so I escaped the calamity. I wandered around for more than 800 years, and was caught by an accident. My natal soul essence was sucked out and sent to a city's convict arena. My dragon bloodline was activated, so I defeated my opponents and survived many times. Later, the immortals of the convict arena saw that I could break through to the demon immortal realm, and gave me an immortal pill to break through to become an immortal. Then, I kept fighting with my opponents in the convict arena. I thought I was going to die many times, but I never thought that I would always be lucky enough to survive. Until I met you." A cold light flashed in Tanxiu's eyes and he asked in a deep voice, "Who caught you and sucked out your natal soul essence?" "Tanlang, a despicable and shameless profound immortal," answered the Catgirl. "Where is he now?" asked Tanxiu. "I don't know." The Catgirl shook her head. "I've been in the convict arena for more than 300 years, and experienced hundreds of fights. I heard later that he likes to capture some weak people and secretly sell them to the convict arena. It seems that he has a deep relationship with a high-ranking member of the convict arena." "You don't know his origin?" asked Tanxiu. The Catgirl shook her head and suddenly nodded. "He seems to be a disciple of a big sect, but I don't know the name of that sect." Tanxiu patted her shoulder and lightly said, "If I can recover to my peak in the future, I'll definitely send someone to find him and help you vent your anger." "Thank you, Master." After saying that, the Catgirl hugged Tanxiu and stuck her beautiful face on Tanxiu's chest. At this moment, she felt that this chest was the warmest and safest place in the entire immortal world. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something and curiously asked, "Where's the mistress, Master?" "I've been inquiring about her many times, but I've never been able to find her. Tan Xiu's face turned cold and he lightly said, "She's no longer your mistress and has nothing to do with me anymore. Remember, if you see her in the future, if she provokes you, you have to kill her directly. You don't need to pay attention to her if she doesn't provoke you." "Why?" asked the cat girl, confused. "No reason. Just remember my words," said Tan Xiu lightly. Shortly after, Tan Xiu didn't want to talk to the cat girl anymore. After taking out the demon god spirit devourer cauldron, he began to refine the artifact with all his might. Because all the materials needed to refine the multicolored cloak had been prepared, Tan Xiu was able to refine 20 pieces of the multicolored cloak in one go. A few months later, when Tan Xiu left the lava cave, he saw Gu Yan'er sitting cross-legged outside. After asking, he learned that Gu Yan'er and the 4 elders of the Aurelian Artificer sect had completely wiped out the Clearwater clan. Except for an elder of the Aurelian Artificer sect who was slightly injured, everyone else was intact. "I didn't expect the Clearwater clan to have so much wealth, Master. According to the statistics, all their wealth can be exchanged for 230,000 immortal crystals. However, according to your instructions, I've given all the wealth to the Aurelian Artificer sect and asked them to give me weapons of equal value," said Gu Yan'er with a smile. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "What our great Tang Empire lacks the most right now is all kinds of resources, especially weapons. We need a lot of resources to back us up if we want to recruit soldiers in the future. When you went to the Clearwater clan, I went to Immortal Quest City and had a good harvest. By the way, did you see the cat girl?" Gu Yan'er nodded and said, "I saw her when you were in seclusion refining. But do you really trust her?" "Just like you, she was raised by me." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "But do you really trust her? When she was just born, her parents gave her to me. Even though they knew that they would die, they still did some things for her. It's just that she hadn't transformed yet when I was plotted against." "Do you know her parents?" asked Gu Yan'er curiously. "That's right." Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Her parents once saved my life and are good friends of mine. However, they have their own destiny. Even though I've helped them several times, I still can't change the outcome of their demise." Gu Yan'er nodded slowly and said, "I know you're a man of ideas, Master, but I hope you won't do something like exposing your identity again. Our enemies are too powerful, so we can only reveal our true identities when we can fight them." "Don't worry." Tan Xiu patted her shoulder and said, "The 1-year deadline is getting closer and closer. I'm afraid that the Aurelian Artificer sect won't be able to complete our order. Let's stay here for 3 months and wait for all the things we need to be prepared before we go back. I need the 4 elders of the Aurelian Artificer sect to help me refine an immortal artifact in the coming days." "What kind of immortal artifact?" asked Gu Yan'er curiously. "A heavenly abode immortal artifact," answered Tan Xiu. Gu Yan'er was shaken inwardly and said, "A lot of precious materials are needed to refine a heavenly abode immortal artifact, Master. Also, the price will be doubled if the internal space is very large." 5 million immortal crystals should be enough," said Tan Xiu. Gu Yan'er recalled what Catgirl told her and immediately nodded with a smile. "You won so many immortal crystals in the convict arena, Master. It should be enough to support the refining of a heavenly abode immortal artifact. I'm also proficient in refining artifacts, so I'll help you when the time comes." "All right." Tan Xiu smiled and nodded. Time passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost a year and a half since Tan Xiu and Gu Yan'er left the soldiers of the Great Tang Empire. The heavenly abode immortal artifact was finally refined by the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect, as well as him and Gu Yan'er. It was a heavenly abode immortal artifact that could accommodate millions of people and had the shape of a ship. It was divided into 10 areas inside. Although it couldn't be compared to some heavenly abode blessed lands for cultivation, the cultivation speed inside was still not slow if there were a lot of immortal stones and immortal crystals. "Let's go." Finally, when the Aurelian Artificer sect had finished refining all the weapons Tan Xiu needed, Tan Xiu bid farewell to Dark North Immortal and the 4 ancestors of the Aurelian Artificer sect. According to the distance between the Aurelian Artificer sect and the Great Tang Empire's forces, it would still take several months even if Gu Yan'er a golden immortal, led them. Chapter 1271. Countless living beings and races existed in the vast extraterrestrial river, but there were also countless desolate planets in the vast starry sky. Time didn't have much meaning in the immortal world, because to many formidable immortals, even a single session of closed-door cultivation might take a few years, a few decades, or even a few centuries. It had been a year and a half. When Tanxiu and Gu Yan appeared on the desolate planet again, they looked at the simple camp and exchanged glances, smiling at the same time. Open! Tanxiu personally broke the array shrouding the planet and appeared in the camp. Whoosh! 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 9 figures flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared around Tanxiu's group of 3. When they saw Tanxiu and Gu Yan, they all looked pleasantly surprised. Master! Zhongling floated over and slightly bowed with a bright smile. Did anything happen here in the past year and a half? Asked Tanxiu with a smile. Some immortals pass by the nearby starry sky occasionally, but they didn't notice us, so nothing happened, said Zhongling. Everyone has been going all out to cultivate these days, and many of them have made some breakthroughs. Tanxiu nodded with a smile. He watched more and more figures appear in the distance and converge toward his position. He immediately stepped on the void and came to a height of more than 10 meters above the ground. Then he laughed and said, I'll give everyone a day. We'll leave this place after that. Ouyang Lulu flickered and appeared in front of Tanxiu. After hugging him happily, she curiously asked, Where are we going next? We're going to the Immortal Lyceum, said Tanxiu with a smile. Is the Immortal Lyceum far from here? Asked Ouyang Lulu again. If our trip goes smoothly, we should be able to get there in 4 years, said Tanxiu. But if we encounter some troubles on the way, I'm afraid we'll be delayed for some time. For years? Be it Ouyang Lulu or the others from the Great Tang Empire. They exchanged dismayed looks after hearing this. Now they could even imagine exactly how vast the immortal dimension was. Swoosh! Gu Xiaoxue instantly appeared in front of Tanxiu. She suppressed the excitement in her eyes and asked, Grand Master, who is this? Tanxiu smiled and introduced the cat girl to everyone. Then he pointed to Zhongling's group of 9 and said, Their appearances may have changed, but their soul aura won't. You should be able to tell that they are the sisters who took good care of you. Catgirl approached Zhongling's group of 9. When she determined their identities through their soul auras, she immediately burst into tears of joy. Back then, her master, Tanxiu, had indeed taken good care of her, but the ones who had taken care of her the most were Zhongling and the other girls. Gu Xiaoxue moved closer to Tanxiu and hesitantly asked, Grand Master, did you and Master gain anything from this trip? Our cultivation resources are being consumed at a much faster rate than expected. Tanxiu laughed involuntarily and said, You, this finance minister, are really impatient. Don't worry. With us around, we'll naturally be able to reap great rewards. After saying that, Tanxiu waved his right arm, and a river of immortal stones flew out quickly. Under his precise control, more than 2 million immortal stones appeared in front of every member of the Great Tang Empire, and 10 immortal crystals floated in front of each member. This is the currency of the immortal world, and also a resource that all cultivators and immortals can use. Immortal stones contain immortal force, which you can absorb and refine to enhance your cultivation. You can also use them to buy things you like. After saying that, he sent the immortal crystals to everyone and said again, These are immortal crystals, which are a grade higher than immortal stones. 1 immortal crystal is equivalent to 100 immortal stones. Each of you will get 2. I believe that these immortal stones and immortal crystals will be enough for you to use for a while. From now on, you will get immortal stones and immortal crystals every year. Later, the Ministry of Politics and the Ministry of Finance will cooperate to formulate an annual distribution of immortal stones and immortal crystals. The amount of immortal stones and immortal crystals you receive will vary according to your status. Only by becoming stronger and contributing more to the Great Tang Empire can you receive more and more remuneration in the future. All the members of the Great Tang Empire looked pleasantly surprised. They had already learned some general knowledge about the immortal world when they were on Earth. In the past year and a half, They learned more about the situation of the immortal world from Zhongling's 9 women in addition to their cultivation. Whether it was immortal stones or immortal crystals, they were all treasures to them. Soon after, Tan Xiao took out 3 million immortal crystals and gave them to Gu Xiaoxue. Then he said, "As the Minister of Finance, you will be in charge of these immortal crystals. If there are any financial problems in the future, remember to ask me for them." Gu Xiaoxue's spiritual sense swept through the interspatial ring. She immediately smiled brightly and nodded. "I'll keep it in mind, Grandmaster." Tan Xiao glanced around with a smile and then asked aloud, "These immortal stones and immortal crystals are just the most basic things. We've been away for a year and a half, and we've brought back even more things." Afterward, Tan Xiao took out more than 200,000 immortal swords and 200,000 sets of combat robes from the interspatial ring. Each of them received an immortal sword and a set of combat robes. Whether it was the immortal sword or the combat robes, they all had the symbol of the Great Tang Empire, the 5-star red flag. Finally, Tan Xiao also handed over other weapons, pills, talismans, array discs, and a large number of other cultivation resources to Gu Xiaoxue. Too much. Gu Xiaoxue used to be in charge of a large number of cultivation resources, but compared to the ones Tan Xiao brought back, it was simply insignificant and not worth mentioning. In particular, the 500,000 interspatial rings had already shocked her to the point that it was difficult for her to recover. A day later, except for Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er, everyone else entered the heavenly abode artifact, and were led by the 2 of them. Since Tan Xiao had been to the outer domain astral river before, and had inquired about some things before, he knew the location of the long-distance spatial teleportation array. 2 months later, when Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er landed on the highest peak of a continent, the huge spatial teleportation array appeared in their line of sight. There were also hundreds of cultivators and immortals waiting in the vicinity of the spatial teleportation array. A golden immortal wearing a silver combat robe and boots led a total of 500 immortals to guard the area around the spatial teleportation array. Their expressions were cold and murderous. Anyone who dared to provoke them would be killed by them. Tan Xiao had inquired about the immortal soldiers stationed in the spatial teleportation array. They were from the only empire on this continent, the Iron Horse Empire. They had a strong military force and numerous powerhouses. It was rumored that the emperor of the Iron Horse Empire was a perfected golden immortal. Pay the fee. The silver-robed general came to Tan Xiao and coldly examined him. Then he said in a deep voice, "1 immortal crystal for each person inside the heavenly abode artifact and 10 immortal crystals for each person outside." Tan Xiao handed over more than 200,000 immortal crystals to the silver-robed general and indifferently said, "I know the rules, but you're not qualified to check. Not a single immortal crystal is missing." The silver-robed general recovered from his shock and frowned. "Please cooperate, fellow immortal." Gu Yan'er took a step forward. Her aura flashed and she lightly said, "Are you sure you want to check?" The silver-robed general's breath stagnated, and he immediately forced a smile. "We're just following orders, fellow immortal. Since it's inconvenient for you, then forget it." He was not stupid. The other party had too many people, and who knew how many powerhouses were inside the heavenly abode artifact? He didn't dare to take the risk of offending them given their current military strength. If the other party had more terrifying existences and they were angered, they might directly kill them. That would be a loss that outweighed the gains. Furthermore, no matter who these people were, it was a good thing as long as they weren't a threat to the Iron Horse Empire. Activate the spatial teleportation array ahead of time. The silver-robed general turned around and shouted. Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er glanced at each other and immediately stepped into the spatial teleportation array. As hundreds of cultivators and immortals entered, the group was immediately teleported away. Ares Immortal Domain. Celestial Water Immortal Domain. Aquamarine Immortal Domain. Senkidori Immortal Domain. After 2 years of traveling and jumping through 5 spatial teleportation arrays, Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er finally appeared in the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain with all the members of the Great Tang Empire. "Master, I want to eat the Ice Sea Red Lotus Kanji." The moment they stepped out of the spatial teleportation array, Gu Yan revealed a childish smile and intimately held Tan Xiu's arm. Tan Xiu's memories flowed like water. When Gu Yan was just a 10-year-old child, Tan Xiu had brought her to the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain and ate the icy red lotus congee in Hessen Castle. Not only did Gu Yan savor the taste for a long time, but even Tan Xiu couldn't forget the taste of the icy red lotus congee. That taste was definitely a real delicacy. Let's go there since you want to eat it, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. If I remember correctly, the teleportation array connecting the Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain to the Ivy Immortal Domain isn't too far from the Hessen Castle. Also, we've already consumed a lot of the food we prepared before, so we should buy some supplies. Maybe we can even make a fortune, Gu Yan said with a smile. Tan Xiu couldn't help but laugh. He didn't want to rob others' wealth unless it was absolutely necessary. Of course, robbing evil people was also acceptable. Yan shouldn't we have some experts to protect us? What do you mean, Master? Gu Yan was surprised. The Scarlet Lotus Immortal Domain is very chaotic, Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. I believe you've seen it when you came with me before. It's not easy to guarantee our safety with our current strength. I think we should buy some deathmatch gladiators. Gu Yan suddenly understood and nodded. Buy Golden Immortal Stage deathmatch gladiators if you want to buy them. It won't be a problem to get a lot of immortal crystals with our ability. We can buy hundreds of Golden Immortal Stage deathmatch gladiators to guarantee our safety. The third chapter is over. I'm asking for a monthly vote. Chapter 1272. Red Lotus Immortal Domain. In the endless starry sky, there were many floating star lands. Each star land had a cultivation sect on it. Only the larger star lands had the existence of immortal sects and immortal sections. Hessen Castle was the large star land in this immortal domain. The entire land was so large that it would take decades for even a perfected golden immortal to fly from one end to the other. Mungjun City. Hessen Castle was the largest city, located between the 4 largest immortal sects on the entire continent. The most powerful immortal of Hessen Castle, a terrifying expert of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, lived in Mungjun City all year round. This huge city was named after the expert of Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm. The bustling street was nearly 100 meters wide, and seemed to have no end to it. There were many shops on both sides of the street, and all kinds of buildings towered into the sky. In this ancient city full of vicissitudes, even an immortal would feel insignificant. Stargazing Pavilion. It was the highest grade and oldest restaurant in the entire city. 6 pagodas surrounded a 7-colored glazed pagoda, like stars surrounding the moon. It looked majestic and magnificent. Tan Xiu and Gu Yan stood outside the gate of the Stargazing Pavilion, which was dozens of meters high, looking at the diners coming in and out. It was as if they had returned to the past. Thousands of years had passed in the blink of an eye. Recalling the past, it was as if it had happened yesterday. It was a pity that the 4 heaven celestial guards standing on both sides of the gate were no longer familiar faces. Let's go in. Tan Xiu sighed in his heart. He held Gu Yan's hand and stepped into the gate. They walked along the 1,000-meter-long corridor to the end, looked up at the curved road on both sides, and walked straight ahead. Stargazing Pavilion had strict rules. Only immortals who had at least reached the Golden Immortal Realm were qualified to go forward and eat in the tower in the middle. Otherwise, if the diners had not reached the Golden Immortal Realm, or if none of their companions were Golden Immortals, they would be stopped outside even if they reached the tower in the middle. Class. Rank. This was a common situation in the immortal world. Only strength was the greatest identity card. Only then could one be respected everywhere. Please wait, honored guest. When Tang Xiu and Gu Yan came to the gate of the tower in the middle, they were stopped by a Golden Immortal Stage powerhouse. Behind him were 18 late-stage celestial immortals who shot them cold glares. Tan Xiu frowned. If I remember correctly, Golden Immortals are qualified to come here to enjoy the food and stay in this tower. Did the Stargazing Pavilion's grade increase? Even Golden Immortals aren't qualified to dine here. The elderly Golden Immortal said apologetically. The rules of our Stargazing Pavilion have never changed for tens of thousands of years. Immortal gazing immortal. What exception? Asked Tang Xiu. Fellow immortals, said the golden immortal. Immals, because everyone in Hessian Castle knows that Madame Empyrean Pole will come to my stargazing pavilion every 1,000 years, and stay here for a year. Everyone in Hessen Castle knows that Empyrean Pole Madame will come to our stargazing pavilion every 1,000 years, and stay here for a year. Hence, our tower will not be open to the public, and will only be responsible for entertaining Empyrean Pole Madame. They had been here before and naturally knew that Empyrean Pole Madame was the most powerful perfected golden immortal in the entire Hessen Castle. As a supreme in the immortal world, Tan Xiu's strength had reached the pinnacle. It was only then that he didn't care about Empyrean Pole Madame. Even when he was still a perfected golden immortal, he had no choice but to face her. In the immortal world, Empyrean Pole Madame was not a supremacy, but she could make many supremacies dread and make all perfected golden immortals turn pale at the mere mention of her name. Let's go. Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. He held Gu Yan'er's hand and turned to leave. However, the moment he turned around, he found a beautiful woman in a fluttering white dress standing behind him. She wore a phoenix coronet and had her hair in a bun. Her eyes were as bright as the stars. She was obviously standing in front of them. Yet Tang Xiu and Gu Yan'er couldn't sense her existence at all. It was as though what appeared in their line of sight was just a phantom. She's a powerhouse. She's at least a perfected golden immortal. Tang Xiu's heart tightened, and he instantly moved half a step forward to block Gu Yan'er's side. He then respectfully cupped his fists and said, Great Tang Greet Senior. We'll immediately get out of your way if we block your path. The beautiful woman's eyes were fixated on Tan Xiu's hand that was holding Gu Yan'er's. Only when she heard Tan Xiu's words did she slowly look up. A complicated look flashed in her eyes as she softly said, Don't be afraid. I just sensed his aura, so I showed up to meet you. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. Then he immediately felt alarmed and vigilant. His identity must be kept absolutely confidential, and there were too many people who were familiar with him. He absolutely didn't want to reveal his identity before he returned to the supremacy stage. May I ask who this him is, Senior? Empyrean Pole Oldman. I can sense his aura from you, said the beautiful woman. Empyrean Pole Oldman? Tan Xiu blinked. He suddenly realized that the names of Empyrean Pole Madame and Empyrean Pole Oldman seemed to have a special relationship. Could this person in front of him be Empyrean Pole Madame? The vigilance in Tan Xiu's heart slowly dissipated and his expression turned calm. He said, Senior, I do have some relationship with Empyrean Pole Oldman. If you said that you can sense his aura from me, it should be something I got from the Empyrean Pole world. One of them has his aura. Empyrean Pole Madame's complexion changed, and she hurriedly asked, You've been to the Empyrean Pole world? Where is he? Tell me where he is. After saying that, she released her aura. Although it was only the release of her aura due to her emotional fluctuations, it still made Tan Xiu's complexion turn pale, and the taste of blood came from his throat. Master! A cold light burst out from Gu Yan'er's eyes and she instantly pulled Tan Xiu behind her. She didn't have the slightest fear toward Empyrean Pole Madame, even though she knew very well that she was not her opponent. But she was, after all, a perfected golden immortal, who was just half a step away from breaking through to the supremacy stage. She wasn't inferior to Empyrean Pole Madame. Tan Xiu patted Gu Yan'er's shoulder and pulled her behind him again. I'm fine. Empyrean Pole Madame took a step back and immediately retracted her aura. A healing pill appeared in her hand, and she handed it to Tan Xiu. Are you master and disciple? Just as Tan Xiu was about to nod, Gu Yan'er suddenly said in a deep voice, We may be master and disciple, but we're also lovers. Empyrean Pole Madame stared at the two in a daze and suddenly looked a bit miserable. She looked up at the sky and muttered to herself, Who said master and disciple can't be lovers? Empyrean Pole, you're not even comparable to two children. Immediately after, she lowered her head again and looked at the two with gentle eyes, asking, Can you tell me where Empyrean Pole is? I've been waiting for him here for thousands of years. He promised me that he would come back and eat the icy red lotus porridge with me in this pagoda. A complicated look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he shook his head and said, He has fallen. Empyrean Pole Madam's body trembled, and her eyes instantly turned sharp. She said in a deep voice, "You're talking nonsense. Empyrean Pole is my disciple, and I know his ability. It's impossible for him to have fallen." Tan Xiu took out an astrolabe and marked the coordinates of the Empyrean Pole world on it. Then he handed it to Empyrean Pole Madam and said, "This is the location of the Empyrean Pole world. Whether you believe it or not, it's good to go there yourself." Glancing at the astrolabe, Empyrean Pole Madam faintly realized that what Tan Xiu said should be true. The Empyrean Pole Oldman once told her that this was the place he wanted to go. A complicated look flashed in Empyrean Pole Madam's eyes again. She then took out an interspatial ring and threw it to Tan Xiu. "Whether what you said is true or not, I still want to thank you. After all, you're the ones who provided me with his information. Consider the crystal essences inside as your reward." Having said that, her figure vanished into thin air. Tan Xiu's spiritual sense instantly entered the interspatial ring. To his shock, there were actually 1,000,000 crystal essences inside. One must know that an immortal crystal was equal to 100 immortal stones, whereas a crystal essence was equal to 100 immortal crystals. 1,000,000 crystal essences were equal to 100 million immortal crystals. Rich and overbearing. Truly rich and overbearing. Tan Xiu looked at the spot where Empyrean Pole Madam previously stood, and suddenly rejoiced that he came here. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy for him to get so many crystal essences. Immediately after, Tan Xiu turned to look at the golden immortal old man and calmly asked, "Since Empyrean Pole Madam has left, can we dine in this tower?" The golden immortal old man looked at Tan Xiu with a very complicated expression. He nodded silently and said, "Since Empyrean Pole Madam has left, I naturally have no reason to refuse a distinguished guest. Fellow Immortal, all your expenses in my stargazing pavilion will be free of charge." Tan Xiu and Gu Yan exchanged glances and immediately smiled. It must be noted that the expenses in this stargazing pavilion were extremely high. Even the two of them would have to spend thousands of immortal crystals just to enjoy the delicacies here. This golden immortal old man was really generous to be able to give them a free meal. Suddenly, Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and asked, "May I know who you are?" "I'm the shopkeeper of the stargazing pavilion," said the golden immortal old man. "I've been taking care of this place for my master. The two of you who helped my master just now are the benefactors of the stargazing pavilion. You can ask for anything you want here, and all your expenses will be free of charge." "Are you telling the truth?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "Absolutely," said the golden immortal old man. A ruminating smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he said, "If that's the case, then leave one layer to me. We have quite a lot of people this time, so I'm afraid you'll have to spend some money." Chapter 1273. The golden immortal old man's expression shifted. He suddenly had a bad premonition and hurriedly asked, "Are you two carrying a heavenly abode artifact?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "That's right. We did bring a heavenly abode artifact. I thought we would have to spend a lot of money this time, but I didn't expect fellow Immortal to be so generous and even give us a free meal. It seems that our frequent patronage of the stargazing pavilion for so many years is worth it." The golden immortal old man looked a bit helpless. He originally planned to give Tan Xiu and Gu Yan a free meal, but he didn't expect them to bring a heavenly abode artifact. If there were too many of them, then the stargazing pavilion would lose some wealth. Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Please lead the way, fellow Immortal. We'll eat and drink to our heart's content, but we still need to stay here for 2 more days because I reckon Madame Empyrean Pole will come back for me." What did he mean? She would come back for him? The golden immortal old man's expression shifted, and he immediately said, "Please come inside. I've already boasted, so I won't go back on my words. Besides, you've helped my master, so it's only right for me to treat you with great hospitality." The 88th floor of the tower. This was the floor Tan Xiu had chosen. Since this floor could accommodate hundreds of thousands of diners at the same time, Tan Xiu directly brought everyone from the Great Tang Empire out of the heavenly abode artifact. After hearing Tan Xiu's explanation, everyone suddenly understood. and immediately looked forward to the delicacies of the immortal world. The golden immortal old man's face almost turned green after seeing more than 200,000 members of the Great Tang Empire. It would have been fine if Tan Xiao and the others were in the other towers. After all, the quality of the dishes in the other towers was much worse than the one in the middle tower. 1 year. At least a year's worth of income is enough to make up for the loss of more than 200,000 people. I wouldn't have boasted if I knew this earlier. The golden immortal old man secretly regretted it, but he squeezed out a smile and ordered the kitchen to prepare the dishes. After he left the tower, he shook his head with a wry smile. He thought that even his master, Madame Empyrean Pole, was grateful to Tan Xiao, so she would definitely accept it if he treated them to a free meal. 1 meal. They ate for 2 whole days. At first, the members of the Great Tang Empire thought that it was just a delicacy. However, when they ate the first dish, they were shocked to find that the dish they ate actually contained a huge amount of energy. Just 1 mouthful was more beneficial than absorbing 10 immortal stones. They ate and drank to their heart's content. Tan Xiao stored all the members of the Great Tang Empire into the Heavenly Abode artifact. Because of the delicious food, almost all the members of the Great Tang Empire who were below the immortal stage had advanced by leaps and bounds, and each of them had advanced by at least 1 level. Outside the stargazing pavilion, Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner turned around and looked at the old golden immortal, who was wiping his sweat at the top of the gate. Both of them revealed a strange smile at the same time. Gu Yenner said with a smile, "Master, do you think he will slap himself? I have secretly estimated the cost of this meal. It will cost at least 10 million immortal crystals." Some of them even brought the unfinished immortal wine into the Heavenly Abode artifact. It seems that they are going to keep it for later. Tan Xiao said with a smile, "A conservative estimate is at least 10 million. Otherwise, the dignified stargazing pavilion's shopkeeper, a golden immortal powerhouse, wouldn't have been so distressed and sweaty. He wouldn't have been so relieved when we left." Hee. Gu Yenner held Tan Xiao's arm and said with a smile, "Anyway, we won't get such benefits again for a long time. Now that we've finished taking advantage of them, it's time for us to buy some thugs." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Let's go to the largest convict arena in Moon-Gazing Monarch City. We're not short of money now, so we can be rich for once." Gu Yenner smiled brightly. After all, the 1 million crystal essences given by Madame Empyrean Pole was not a small amount. At least, it was enough for them to use for a long time. Moon-Gazing Monarch City, Convict Arena. After Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner arrived, the attendant inside led them directly to the Immortal Convict Arena. At this time, a fierce fight was taking place inside the Convict Arena, and both sides were profound immortals. "Two distinguished guests, you can tell me what you need in the Convict Arena. I'll serve you wholeheartedly for the rest of the time. You can call me Xiao Yu," said the beautiful attendant with a smile. Tan Xiao nodded slightly and checked the cultivation of all the gladiators in the Convict Arena, as well as their combat records. Finally, he slowly said, "I want to buy 20 golden immortal gladiators. Ask your steward here to name a price." The attendant, Xiao Yu's expression slightly changed and her attitude immediately became more respectful. She said, "Two distinguished guests, no one has ever bought so many golden immortal gladiators at once, so please wait a moment. I'll invite the steward here. He'll personally serve the two of you." Half a quarter of an hour later, under the guidance of the attendant, Xiao Yu, a charming and beautiful woman, came to the front of the duo. Her watery eyes quietly glanced at Tan Xiao and Gu Yenner, and then said with a smile, "I heard that the two distinguished guests want to buy 20 golden immortal gladiators. Is that true?" "That's right," said Tan Xiao. "We do need to buy 20 golden immortal gladiators. The higher their cultivation and the stronger their strength are, the more perfect it will be. As for the price, I hope the steward can give us a discount." The beautiful woman thought for a while and said, "We have a total of 209 golden immortal gladiators here. Among them, 29 are late-stage golden immortals, 62 are mid-stage golden immortals, and the rest are early-stage golden immortals. Since you think that the higher the cultivation and the stronger the better, then I can only recommend the late-stage golden immortal gladiators to you." "What's the price?" said Tanshio calmly. According to the market price, each late-stage golden immortal gladiator is worth 8 million immortal crystals. Since you want to buy 20 of them, that's 160 million immortal crystals. I'll give you a discount of 10 million immortal crystals. You only need to pay 150 million immortal crystals to take away 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators. 150 million immortal crystals? Tanshio could only force a wry smile inwardly. He originally thought that the 1 million crystal essences he had should be enough to buy 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators, but he didn't expect that the price of these gladiators would be so expensive. After taking a deep breath, Tanshio said, "Since you have enough golden immortal gladiators here, then I'm relieved. Let's have some fun here first. We'll carry out the transaction after we've had enough fun. You go do your business first and let this Miss Xiaoyu accompany you. I'll tell her to call you after we're done playing." The beautiful woman smiled and said, "If so, then I won't bother you anymore. Xiaoyu, serve these two honored guests well. If they are not satisfied, I'll throw you into the convict prison's cage and make you a gladiator." Xiaoyu's expression drastically changed and she immediately replied in fear and trepidation, "I'll do my best to serve these two honored guests, manager." Tanshio let out a faint smile and watched the beautiful woman leave. Then he immediately said, "Let's go to the auditorium to watch the fight. It's too boring to just come here to buy gladiators." Having said that, he handed the interspatial ring with 2 million immortal crystals to Xiaoyu and lightly said, "Help me exchange the gambling deed." Understood. Xiaoyu respectfully bowed and took the interspatial ring before leaving. Although the fight in the convict prison's cage was very fierce, Tanshio didn't pay much attention to it. Because a fat middle-aged man with big ears and a ferocious-looking face was hugging two coquettish women and teasing them. His voice was so loud that more than a dozen gamblers around him furrowed their brows and glared at him. The fight came to an end. The fat middle-aged man seemed to notice the angry glares of the people around him. He immediately glared and angrily shouted, "What the fuck are you looking at? Watch out or this fat grandpa will dig out your eyeballs." Fuck, someone actually dares to provoke this fat grandpa in this place. Fucking audacious. You're courting death. A hot-tempered black-robed old man glared at the fat middle-aged man with triangular eyes as he suddenly got up and shouted. He didn't do anything because he was afraid of the rules of the convict arena. If someone were to kill someone here, they would have to pay 1 million immortal crystals as a punishment. Otherwise, it would be considered as a provocation to the entire convict arena, and they would be endlessly hunted down by countless powerhouses. No one knew how powerful the convict arena was. It was because the convict arena had always existed since hundreds of thousands of years ago. No one could even find out who the master behind the convict arena was. Suddenly, the coquettish woman in the left arm of the fat middle-aged man turned into a stream of light and instantly appeared in front of the hot-tempered long-robed old man. She waved her sleeves and a sharp dagger instantly pierced the long-robed old man's throat. Then the coquettish woman's 10 fingernails began to grow crazily. In the blink of an eye, they were already 2 to 3 centimeters long. With that lightning-fast attack, 10 sharp fingernails tore the long-robed old man's clothes, destroyed his defensive immortal equipment, and tore his immortal body into dozens of pieces of flesh and blood. Shock. The surrounding gamblers who were glaring at the fat middle-aged man revealed a look of horror. They all retreated in unison and hid far away. The aura that the long-robed old man exuded just now proved that he was a profound immortal expert. But a profound immortal was instantly killed by the woman that the fat middle-aged man doted on. This almost scared them out of their wits. Tanshio quietly looked at the scene in front of him and silently deduced the coquettish woman's cultivation level. In just a short moment, he deduced that this coquettish woman was at least a mid-stage golden immortal or a late-stage golden immortal. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to kill a profound immortal in an instant. Immortal monarch. After the coquettish woman killed the man, she turned back into her charming self and returned to the fat middle-aged man's side. It was as if she wasn't the one who killed the man just now. Chapter 1274. Tanshio had a lot of experience in the past, so he understood a few things very well. There were countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers in the immortal world, and only by keeping a low profile could one live longer. Conversely, if one wanted to die faster, just like the long-robed old man, a moment of impulse and anger eventually led to his brutal death. Interesting. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He found that the other gamblers in the surroundings had gone far away, leaving only him and Gu Yan'er in the vicinity of the chubby middle-aged trio. The chubby middle-aged man also noticed that Tan Xiu and Gu Yan'er hadn't left. He just glanced at them a few times and knew that the man and woman didn't react to his behavior, nor did they show any hostility toward him. Therefore, he was a bit surprised to see that the two still looked calm as if nothing had happened. She's the best. Her figure and temperament are definitely the best. If I'm not mistaken, her looks are definitely top-notch. The chubby middle-aged man's sharp eyes swept over Gu Yan'er's hand that was holding Tan Xiu's arm and immediately laughed. You have an extraordinary bearing, little brother. I really admire you. Can you come over and have a seat? Tan Xiu slightly raised his brows and lightly smiled. I was just scared by the #1 powerhouse in Hessen Castle, so I'll pass to avoid making a fool of myself. You can come over yourself if you want to have some fun, sir. A glint flashed in the chubby middle-aged man's eyes. He immediately patted the shoulders of the two coquettish women and floated to the front of Tan Xiu and Gu Yan'er. After sitting on the other side of Tan Xiu, he lightly smiled and said, Little brother, have you just met Madame Empyrean Pole? Ah, that poor woman will come to the stargazing pavilion every millennium, hoping that the Empyrean Pole old man will come back. It's no secret. A blush flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes before he smilingly said, It's just a quick meeting. I still have to maintain a fearful posture in front of a powerhouse. But you're a bit interesting, sir. You seem to be quite familiar with this master and disciple, no? The fat middle-aged man laughed heartily and said, Familiar, it's more than familiar. Ha ha ha. You're very interesting, very interesting. I haven't met such an interesting young man like you for many, many years. Tell me, where are you from? Tan Xiu calmly said, You're just a trivial rogue cultivator who drifts around the world. Do you think I'm very young? The chubby middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. You're still a kid in my eyes. Dolls? Tan Xiu turned his head and exchanged glances with Gu Yan'er. Both of them had a smile in their eyes. When Tan Xiu turned his head back, he nodded and smilingly said, That's right. I'm indeed a child. You can call me Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, or you can call me Great Tang Emperor. How should I address you? Great Tang Heavenly Emperor. The chubby middle-aged man couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and smilingly said, You really don't know how to be modest, kid. Even I don't dare to use the title of Heavenly Emperor. Great Tanglo bro, I think you're very interesting, so why don't we make a bet next time? I'll tell you my title if you win, but if you lose, can you let me see the appearance of this beauty beside you? The smile on Tan Xiu's face slightly receded and he calmly said, Celestial Pole Oldman once told me that curiosity can kill a man. If you want to make friends with me, then don't mention this matter again. We can have some fun if you have any ill intentions. The chubby middle-aged man stared blankly and slightly furrowed his brows. As far as he knew, Celestial Pole Oldman had been missing for thousands of years. Yet this young man in front of him said that he had personally spoken to him. Something was wrong, wasn't it? Could it be that this young man had just seen Celestial Pole Oldman recently? The chubby middle-aged man pondered for a moment, and was about to speak when his complexion slightly changed. He suddenly recalled that Tan Xiu asked him if he thought he was young. Could it be? Is he a reincarnated almighty expert? That's right. Ever since his woman killed that long-robed profound immortal old man, everyone else in the surroundings had hidden far away, except for the two of them. Even his words revealed a lofty and aloof tone. Yet this young man was neither servile nor overbearing, and had an extraordinary bearing. It was impossible for a young man to maintain such a state of mind in front of him. The chubby middle-aged man shot a deep look at Tan Xiu and said, Forget about the request I just made. But you need to answer another question of mine, mister. Tan Xiu chuckled and said, You're really too curious, huh? Tell me, I want to hear what your question is. What's the relationship between the two of you? Asked the chubby middle-aged man. She's my disciple, said Tanxiu with a faint smile. She's also his woman. Gu Yan'er tightened her grip on Tanxiu's arm, and the aura of a golden immortal flashed away. The chubby middle-aged man took a deep breath and immediately realized that his previous guess was correct. This young man in front of him was probably a reincarnated almighty expert. Else, how could he have a golden immortal as his disciple who had just stepped into the ordinary immortal stage? Even his golden immortal disciple was just half a step away from the perfected golden immortal stage. A smile outlined on the chubby middle-aged man's face as he lightly smiled and said, "No matter what your identity was, you're just an ordinary immortal in my eyes now. Great Tanglil bro, I'm Nine Nether Swordmeister. You can call me Brother Nine Nether." Nine Nether Swordmeister? A cold glint flashed in the eyes of Gu Yan, at Tanxiu's side. This Nine Nether Swordmeister was almost as famous as her. He was also a terrifying madman in the immortal world, and was also a perfected golden immortal. Both of them were regarded as terrifying devils by countless people. Grave Burial Sect? Nine Nether Swordmeister? A complicated look flashed in Tanxiu's eyes as he nodded and said, "We'll be friends in the future. I'm too poor right now to buy some golden immortal gladiators, so I'll ask you 3 times as a greeting gift. I won't refuse if I can do it in the future." 3 times as a favor? A glint flashed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes as he meaningfully sized up Tanxiu. Then he nodded and said, "Great Tanglil bro, this greeting gift is very heavy, so I'll accept it. Since we're friends, then the greeting gift must be from both sides. How many golden immortal gladiators do you need, Great Tanglil bro? I'll pay for it." Ha ha ha. Tanxiu burst into laughter and gave a thumbs up in praise. "You're really generous, Brother Nine Nether. 20 golden immortal gladiators cost 150 million immortal crystals. That's a lot more than the 1 million immortal crystals Madame Empyrean Pole gave you, and the 10 million immortal crystals meal from the Stargazing Pavilion. I'll accept it since we're friends." Since when did Empyrean Pole Madame become so generous? Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "I'm not familiar with her," replied Tanxiu with a faint smile. Nine Nether Swordmeister couldn't help laughing and shot Tanxiu an admiring look, saying, "You're really interesting, Great Tanglil bro. Others are eager to have a relationship with a powerhouse like Madame Empyrean Pole. Yet you directly said that you're not familiar with her. That's really interesting." "I've always been honest to my friends," said Tanxiu with a smile. "I like honesty between friends." Nine Nether Swordmeister laughed aloud. "Great Tanglil bro, since you've given me 3 requests, then I'll mention one now. There will be a big bet here 8 months later, and I'm one of the participants. I want to ask you to help me win the bet, Great Tanglil bro. How about it?" "Enemies?" asked Tanxiu. "You can say so." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded. "There are some grudges between us that Madame Empyrean Pole personally presided over. She wants to help us resolve the enmity and finally settle the bet. No matter who wins or loses, the enmity will come to an end. I'll get huge benefits if I win, but my vitality will be greatly damaged if I lose. I can't guarantee that you'll win with 100% certainty." Tanxiu nodded. "I can only try my best." "Don't worry," said Nine Nether Swordmeister. "I won't put all my hopes on you. You just need to follow me, give me advice, and give me some advice. I won't blame you even if I lose in the end." At this moment, more than a dozen guards of the convict arena came to the front of them. The chief steward narrowed his eyes and looked at Nine Nether Swordmeister, saying, "If you know the rules of the convict arena, then please pay a fine of 1 million immortal crystals. If you don't, our people are willing to explain it to you." Nine Nether Swordmeister flicked his fingers, and an interspatial ring appeared in the chief steward's hand. As he scanned it with his immortal sense, he immediately nodded and said, "You're all honored guests of the convict arena, so I hope you won't go too far. You can gamble with your enemies if you don't feel happy here, and win everything from them. It's far more interesting than killing them. You don't need to pay 1 million immortal crystals even if you kill them. You just need to apply for a deathmatch contract at the exchange counter, and you can bet your life to win." "I got it. Just go away." Nine Nether Swordmeister waved his hand. The golden immortal old man let out a faint smile, and turned to Tan Xiao. Then he left with more than a dozen guards. Do you know him, Great Tang Lil Bro? Asked Nine Nether Swordmeister. We talked about buying 20 golden immortal gladiators before. Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, we met once. Why do you want to buy so many golden immortal gladiators? Asked Nine Nether Swordmeister with a smile. Do you want them to be your guards? Tan Xiao chuckled and said, don't tell me you don't think that spending money to buy a group of thugs to accompany you will save you a lot of trouble in the future? I'm too poor, else I would have bought tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of golden immortal gladiators, and formed a golden immortal legion. If I don't like it, I can flatten it with a wave of my arm or a flick of my finger. If I don't like it, I can directly crush them with my golden immortal subordinates. Cough, cough, cough. Nine Nether Swordmeister nearly choked to death. His face flushed red, and was covered with a strange expression. After a while he gave a thumbs up to Tan Xiao and praised. Great Tang Lil Bro, you're really a marvel. You can even come up with such a grand idea in your mind. This big brother admires you. Chapter 1275. From the beginning to the end, Nine Nether Swordmeister didn't ask about Tan Xiao's true identity. As the saying goes, the friendship between gentlemen is as indifferent as water. After all, this was the first time they met, so it was natural that they wouldn't reveal anything to each other. Soon after, a graceful woman in a black combat robe walked into the convict arena's cage. She looked around and said in a deep voice, the following deathmatch gladiators will definitely make everyone's blood boil. You should all know their names, and you should also know their accomplishments. Well then, please welcome Battlepung and Vasuf. As her voice faded away, everyone's eyes were focused on the entrance of the convict cage. When the two figures appeared, the tens of thousands of gamblers in the spectator seats of the convict cage stood up and shouted the names of the people they had placed their bets on. Early stage Golden Immortal, Battlepung. Mid-stage Golden Immortal, Vasuf. A smile appeared on Nine Nether Swordmeister's face as he turned to look at Tan Xiao and said, an early-stage Golden Immortal and a mid-stage Golden Immortal. Battlepung, 48 wins out of 49 fights. The only time he lost was when he was seriously injured and unable to fight again. His opponent was already dying and eventually gave up on killing him. Vasuf, 62 wins out of 62 fights and brutally killed his opponent every time. He's one of the most ruthless Golden Immortals in the convict arena, and also the one who has lived the longest here. Great Tang Lil Bro, who do you think will win in the end? Tang Xiao silently recalled the combat records of the two men, as well as their specific information. After a quarter of an hour he slowly said, Battlepung. Nine Nether Swordmeister shook his head and smilingly said, I used to do the opposite. The more I thought someone couldn't win, the more I bet on them. Every time the situation was reversed, I felt very happy. How about we make a bet this time? It's not too big of a bet though. Tan Xiao smiled and asked, what kind of bet do you want to make, Nine Nether brother? A glint flashed in Nine Nether Swordmeister's eyes as he said, if you win, I'll teach you my self-created 9 Nether 18 swords. If you lose, you just have to give me the 1,000,000 crystal essences that Madame Empyrean Pole gave you. How about it? Tan Xiao shook his head and said, Elder brother 9 Nether has a terrifying cultivation base, and the self-created 9 Nether 18 swords is probably an extremely powerful divine ability in the immortal world. Unfortunately, I don't lack magical powers or spells. Let's bet 1,000,000 crystal essences. At least for the two of us, it's fair. What a fair word. Nine Nether Swordmeister cast a meaningful look at Tan Xiao, and increasingly felt that his judgment was correct. This person in front of him was definitely a powerful character in the past. Laughing heartily he continued, then 1,000,000 crystal essences it is. We can afford this small amount of money. Little money? Little money my ass. Tan Xiao secretly cursed in his heart. 1,000,000 crystal essences was equivalent to 100 million immortal crystals, which was a huge sum for him now. Just the cultivation resources alone would probably be enough for all the members of the Great Tang Empire to use for hundreds of years. Inside the convict's cage, Battlepung showed neither joy nor sorrow as he calmly looked at the ferocious Vasuf opposite him. Every time he entered the prison cage to fight, his goal was not to kill his enemies, but to survive. The dark days of the convict arena seemed to be endless slaughter. He understood that only by winning could he survive. In his heart, there was still a glimmer of hope. This hope was to gain the recognition of a certain great figure through his glorious achievements, so that he could be bought away from this place. Even if he had to follow that person in the future and kill endlessly, it was still better than staying here forever. It was far, far better. The battle begins. Along with the shout of the graceful woman, Vasov took out a war blade and rushed towards Battlepung, who was 100 meters away. The blade light had already arrived in front of Battlepung. Spatial barrier. In an instant, Battlepung sent out thousands of hand seals. Layer after layer of light screens appeared before him. Even though the sabers kept shattering the barrier, when the countless saber shadows were still half a meter away from Battlepung, they were all blocked. A silver spear suddenly appeared in Battlepung's hand out of the blue. The spear's shadow burned with raging flames and countless golden runes shrouded it as he thrust it toward the saber shadows in front. Boom! Both of them retreated at the same time, each retreating several kilometers away before they barely managed to stabilize their bodies. A bloodthirsty glint flashed in Vasov's eyes. He licked his chapped lips and grinned. Battlepung, I've watched 24 of your fights and studied all your secret arts and divine abilities. If your cultivation had advanced to the next level and reached the mid-level of Golden Immortal, you might have been able to contend with me. But with your current strength, you can only be a stepping stone for me to live longer. Today, I'll use your blood to add to Vasov's outstanding achievements. Having said that, a black lacquer chain that was 100 meters long and shrouded in black mist appeared inside his body. As he rushed toward Battlepung again, he fiercely slashed his war blade, whereas the chain fluttered around the blade shadows. The black mist was like a snake hissing and flicking its tongue, carrying the aura of death. Jumping levels to kill people is a common thing in the immortal world. Relying on your high cultivation, you dare to be so arrogant? You're simply courting death. You wanna die? I'll fulfill your wish. A cold glint flashed in Battlepung's eyes. He waved his arms and spear shadows were like sharp arrows that blotted out the sky as they shot toward the sprinting Vasov. However, it was very difficult for the sharp arrows to bend, but the spear shadows were like silver ribbons that overlapped and constantly changed their trajectories. Spear weaves lightning. Battlepung stepped on the spear shadows and raging flames erupted all over his body. He looked like an incarnation of a flaming god of war. He kept casting seals and unleashing swift and fierce killing moves. Boom! The convict prison's cage was surrounded by an array formation set up by a powerful supernatural being. Hence, the explosive power of the two people inside had no effect on the outside. The flames crisscrossed and the black mist lingered. The two of them kept casting various divine abilities and means. Amidst the intense consumption, Vasov gradually gained the upper hand. However, he only gained the upper hand. The wounds on his body kept increasing, and he even fell into a crisis several times. I'll take your life while you're down. As time went by, Vasov, who had been fighting for several hours, suddenly flew up and flew toward Battlepung along with the blade light. In nearly the blink of an eye, the blade-like black battle robe suddenly bulged up, and Vasov appeared in front of Battlepung the next moment. Die! Another blade instantly swept across Battlepung's neck. Space condensation. Battlepung seemed to have expected Vasov to use this move. He kept casting seals with both hands. The moment the blade swept across his neck, his 10 fingers turned into claws. The seemingly careless slash caused the space in front of his throat to distort. Immediately afterward, the distorted space expanded infinitely, causing Vasov's body to tremble and instantly retreat backward. Too late. Battlepung grinned fiendishly. A surge of immortal force turned into a spear shadow and pierced Vasov's chest. Vasov revealed an incredulous expression as Battlepung's figure gradually turned illusory. Behind Vasov, a short sword appeared out of thin air in Battlepung's hand and pierced deep into his back. The violent immortal force destroyed Vasov's heart core and destroyed his internal organs. Immediately after, a long spear appeared out of thin air and directly whipped Vasov away. Then let's die together. Vasov's stature suddenly skyrocketed. and a flickering golden phantom emerged from his body. Although his body was sent flying backward, the golden phantom was as fast as lightning. It instantly turned into a long blade and fiercely chopped down on Battlepeng's head. Puff! The moment Battlepeng held the short sword in a reverse grip and blocked in front of his forehead, the long blade slashed the short sword. As the short sword broke, it also slashed across Battlepeng's head and cut off his hand that was holding the short sword. Boom! The long saber exploded with a loud bang, sending Battlepeng's body flying back several dozen kilometers before crashing heavily onto the ground. Whoosh! A figure flickered and instantly appeared in front of Battlepeng. A pink mist sprayed out from the person's hand and converged on Battlepeng's broken wrist that was spraying blood. The broken hand was then wrapped by a golden thread and quickly reattached to Battlepeng. This immortal kernel mist can restore your broken wrist in 3 days. Remember, you're not allowed to fight anyone for 3 days. The graceful woman glanced at Vasif's broken body and then floated away. Battlepeng wriggled his body and crawled up from the ground with great difficulty. His eyes were filled with indifference towards life. After crawling up, he gently moved his arms. Then, without so much as a glance at the audience outside, he slowly disappeared through the door of the prison cell amidst countless cheers and curses. In the auditorium, a smile hung on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He turned to look at Nine Nether Swordmeister, who was shaking his head with a forced smile, and said, "It seems I won this bet." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded and wiped his fat cheek with his palm. Then he curiously asked, "How did you judge that Battlepeng was the final winner?" "I found some clues from his information," said Tan Xiu. "It's written that he's proficient in spatial techniques, but he has never used any spatial manipulation techniques in his past battles. You may not understand, but I'll be frank with you. I bet that he has the ability to manipulate space. I also believe that every expert who can live to the Golden Immortal stage has his own trump card." "Then I don't get it. Why didn't he use his spatial ability when he was almost killed by the enemy?" Nine Nether Swordmeister frowned. "That's why he lost the battle." Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and thoughtfully said, "He should be hiding his strength if my guess is correct. It's very likely that he's not an early-stage Golden Immortal." "You said he's not an early-stage Golden Immortal?" Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "How is that possible?" Chapter 1276. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and asked, "What's your cultivation level now, Nine Nether brother?" Nine Nether Swordmeister stared blankly and immediately pondered for a while. Then he slowly replied, "I've been stuck at the mid-stage of Golden Immortal for more than 2,000 years, and have never been able to break through to the late stage of Golden Immortal. Why do you ask?" Tan Xiu didn't answer his question, but asked another question instead. "If you know the Heaven Shrouding art, what kind of cultivation level would you usually reveal to others?" "The Heaven Shrouding art?" Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. "You mean Battlepeng is proficient in the Heaven Shrouding art? You must know that the Heaven Shrouding art is a secret art unique to Lightning Seigneur. And it's also known that Battlepeng isn't one of his 4 disciples. Concealing one's cultivation level is something anyone can do, but to evade detection without putting up the slightest resistance, I'm afraid only the Lightning Seigneur and his 4 disciples can do that, right? You just used a phrase that I think is very good." Tan Xiu shook his head. "It's known to all. But were there no exceptions besides the well-known ones? There are innumerable powerhouses in the entire immortal world, and there are even more almighty beings. Maybe there are some heaven-defying peerless geniuses who can research the Heaven Shrouding art that's almost on par with Lightning Seigneur?" Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded solemnly and said, "What you said makes sense. It seems I've underestimated the almighty beings in the immortal world." Having said that, with a bit of regret on his face, he sighed faintly and said, "Those almighty beings who liked stirring up trouble the most have all disappeared. Some are dead, while others are hiding from the world. I'm afraid it's hard to see them stirring up chaos in the immortal world and forcing countless powerhouses to take action. Else, the means of those almighty beings will continue to spread out and be known by us." Tan Xiu shook his head without a word and sighed inwardly. He used to be Nine Nether Swordmeister said that he was the kind of person who liked stirring up trouble. Before he met Xue Qingcheng, he had stirred up chaos in the immortal world countless times. In fact, after he became a supreme stage great divine ability practitioner, he had caused countless high-level battles. Amongst them, there were no less than 10 exalted realm experts that he'd personally killed. And there were even over 10,000 perfected golden immortals amongst them. He had become a supreme being by wading through rivers of blood and stepping on mountains of corpses to reach the top. Looking at Nine Nether Swordmeister's complicated expression, Tan Xiu slowly said, "The immortal world won't be peaceful for a long time. As batches of weaklings became strong, there would naturally be some people who would stand out and cause chaos." Some time ago, I heard of a person who seems to be very happy right now. Who is it? Nine Nether Swordmeister was surprised. Tan Xiu said, 100 Dan Immortal Lord. Nine Nether Swordmeister furrowed his brows and a disdainful look flashed in his eyes as he lightly said, "He's indeed causing quite a ruckus recently. It's quite rare for a perfected golden immortal to be able to kill 4 experts of the same level. Great Tanglo Bro doesn't seem to be very well informed. Just 3 years ago, that brat was hunted down for half a year and nearly died countless times. If it weren't for his senior and junior brothers coming out to rescue him, and if it weren't for his master, Great Emperor Danqing, coming out of seclusion and laying out the 9-9 Annihilation Immortal Array to trap the other party inside, and refine him to death, I'm afraid he wouldn't have been able to create any waves." Killing intent surged inside Tan Xiu's heart, but he maintained his composure on the surface and said, "Great Emperor Danqing? That supremacy stage powerhouse in the immortal world? To think that he would actually refine his enemies to death just for his disciple?" Nine Nether Swordmeister obviously didn't want to talk about Great Emperor Danqing and lightly said, "An in-name disciple is different from a personal disciple. If an in-name disciple dies, then so be it. But if a personal disciple is killed by someone else, it's like slapping the faces of those big shots. It would be strange if they didn't act." Back then, when a personal disciple of Star Cultivation Great Emperor was killed, he crossed hundreds of immortal domains and personally massacred the other party's entire sect, causing an uproar in most of the immortal world. That kind of character is truly worthy of respect. Star Cultivation Great Emperor? The killing intent in Tan Xiu's heart was replaced by complex emotions. It was such a familiar name, and no one in the entire immortal world was more familiar with it than him. It was because he was the supremacy of the immortal world. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression shifted and he asked, "Brother Nine Nether, I heard you talk about this Star Cultivation Great Emperor. I've heard of his legend. He seems to be a very powerful supremacy of the immortal world. How come I haven't heard of his name in the past hundreds of years? He failed to cross the divinity tribulation and died." Nine Nether Swordmeister shook his head and sighed. He actually failed to cross the divinity tribulation? Tan Xiu pretended to be shocked and asked, "How is that possible? I heard that he's a true super powerhouse in the entire immortal world. Even many supremacy stage powerhouses are not his match. I never thought that he would fail to cross the divinity tribulation." Nine Nether Swordmeister sighed. The divinity tribulation? Tan Xiu was silent for a while and then casually said, "I really didn't expect that Star Cultivation Great Emperor would die. It seems that the path of immortal cultivation is really full of dangers." "That's right, I heard that Star Cultivation Great Emperor was the strongest person in the Rosefinch Holy Sect. He died and provoked so many enemies, so I'm afraid that he'll make things difficult for the Rosefinch Holy Sect, no?" Nine Nether Swordmeister seemed to recall something, and a contemptuous look appeared in his eyes. He lightly said, "The Rosefinch Holy Sect's life is indeed not that good nowadays. Speaking of which, Star Cultivation Great Emperor is really blind to have made friends with 2 people who are worse than pigs and dogs. After he failed to cross the divinity tribulation, his 2 friends even threatened that Star Cultivation Great Emperor had humiliated them. The 2 of them joined forces and found many supremes and perfected golden immortals who once had grievances with Star Cultivation Great Emperor to kill the Rosefinch Holy Sect. Nearly half of the once glorious disciples of the Rosefinch Holy Sect were killed, and the rest are now holed up in the clan land of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, relying on the two supremacy stage powerhouses of the sect, as well as the sect's protective array to survive. There's such a thing? Tan Xiu was surprised. Could it be that the former disciples of Star Cultivation Great Emperor, his former subordinates, and even his other friends just tolerate others bullying the Rosefinch Holy Sect? Monkeys scatter when the tree falls, and everyone pushes the wall when it's down. Nine Nether Swordmeister sighed. These words were said by a profound immortal young man, and all the immortals in the entire immortal world felt that it was very reasonable. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's not an exaggeration. Of course, it can't be generalized. Star Cultivation Great Emperor once had countless disciples and countless powerhouses who were indebted to him. Those powerhouses who knew how to repay kindness bravely stepped forward and participated in the battle that lasted for hundreds of years. Millions of people died in the battle, and the rest also retreated after the chaos. Although they retreated, they still declared that if those enemies dare to provoke the Rosefinch Holy Sect again, they won't hesitate to attack them. Having said that, Nine Nether Swordmeister seemed unwilling to talk about this heavy topic anymore. He took out 1,000,000 crystal essences from his interspatial ring and gave them to Tan Xiu, saying, "You won this." Despite his complicated feelings, Tang Xiu still let out a smile and accepted the 1,000,000 crystal essences. Then he said, "Then this little brother will respectfully accept these crystal essences. You're a perfected golden immortal, Brother Nine Nether. I can tell from your words and actions that you seem to respect Star Cultivation Great Emperor very much. Could it be that you also participated in the Rosefinch Holy Sect's crisis?" "Of course. Supreme Star Soul once did me a great favor, so how could I stand idly by when the Rosefinch Holy Sect was in trouble? Even that muddle-headed Empyrean Pole Madam also participated in it," sighed Nine Nether Swordmeister. "Madam Empyrean Pole Madam also participated in it?" Tan Xiu was surprised. "Does she also have a friendship with someone from the Rosefinch Holy Sect?" "She acted on behalf of the Empyrean Pole Oldman." Nine Nether Swordmeister shook his head. "She had a deep friendship with Star Cultivation Great Emperor back then." Suddenly Nine Nether Swordmeister stared at Tan Xiu and changed the topic. "Great Tanglil Bro, you seem to be very concerned about Star Cultivation Great Emperor and the Rosefinch Holy Sect, no? Did you also?" No. Tan Xiu let out a hollow laugh and said, "How could a nobody like me have any relationship with those big shots? I'm just curious about the chaos that happened in the past. However, it would be great if I could have a relationship with them. At least I can follow Star Cultivation Great Emperor. After all, he's a super powerhouse who's very protective of his people. With his protection, I can really walk unhindered in the immortal world." "Ha ha ha." Nine Nether Swordmeister burst into laughter. Even the two coquettish women on his other side couldn't help but laugh again and again. Tan Xiu let out a hollow laugh a few times and said, "Even if I don't know Star Cultivation Great Emperor, it's still my blessing to get to know you, Brother Nine Nether. If anyone dares to bully me in the future, I'll use your name, brother. When the time comes, all my enemies who are hostile to me will definitely be scared shitless and flee after hearing your name." Nine Nether Swordmeister rolled his eyes. He got up and smilingly said, "I have a lot of enemies. You can use my name if you're not afraid of further enmity. Alright, I've wasted a lot of time coming here today, so I'll go back first. May I know where Great Tanglil Bro lives? I'll inform you later when I'm gambling with my enemies." Tan Xiu thought for a while and then said, "Then come to the Stargazing Pavilion to find me." Nine Nether Swordmeister nodded and gave Tan Xiu a message token. Then he hugged the two coquettish women and walked outside. After walking for a kilometer, he sent a voice transmission to Xiong Xiu. "You can choose 20 golden immortal gladiators yourself. I'll pay the immortal crystals to the convict arena, so you don't need to worry about it." "Thank you, Brother Nine Nether." Tan Xiu cupped his fists toward Nine Nether Swordmeister's back and replied with a voice transmission. His gratitude was only a small part of the Golden Immortal's gift. What he really thanked him for was his help to the Rosefinch Holy Sect. Chapter 1277. The amorous chief manager of the convict arena, led by the attendant Xiaoyu, returned to Tan Xiao and Gu Yan'er. When her beautiful eyes glanced at Tan Xiao, she smiled and said, "You have a good eye, fellow immortal. You won the first round. Congratulations." "I'm just playing around." Tan Xiao smiled indifferently. The attendant Xiaoyu respectfully handed the interspatial ring to Tan Xiao and said, "These are the immortal crystals you asked me to exchange for you. There are 2 million immortal crystals and 2 million immortal crystals you won, for a total of 4 million immortal crystals." Tan Xiao casually took out 10 immortal crystals and threw them to Xiaoyu, saying, "This is your reward. There's nothing else for you to do now, so go and do something else." The attendant Xiaoyu hurriedly looked at the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman smiled lightly and said, "Just take it since it's a reward from an honored guest. Great Tang immortal friend, Nine Nether Swordmeister just paid 150 million immortal crystals for you. Are you going to pick 20 late-stage golden immortal gladiators now?" "What's the price of early-stage golden immortal gladiators?" asked Tan Xiao. "4 million immortal crystals," answered the beautiful woman with a smile. Tan Xiao directly took out 4 million immortal crystals and gave them to her, saying indifferently, "Since Battle Peng made me win 2 million immortal crystals, then I'll buy him as well." After a long while, Tan Xiao took the life tokens of the 21 golden immortals and left the convict arena with them. The background of these 21 golden immortals was recorded in the convict arena's information. Unless someone was hiding their identity, they were not from hostile forces. At this moment, the 21 golden immortals, including Battle Peng, all looked at Tan Xiao with grateful eyes. Although they found out that the person who paid such a high price to buy them was just an ordinary immortal, who hadn't even reached the Earth Immortal stage, the fact that he could save them from such a perverted place like the convict arena was undoubtedly like giving them a second life. At the Stargazing Pavilion, the old golden immortal chief manager was sitting in the accountant's room, silently calculating some things. After a long while, as his orders were passed out, the entire Stargazing Pavilion's protective array was ready to be opened at any time. On the surface, the guards of the Stargazing Pavilion were still the same as before, but behind the scenes, a large number of experts of the Stargazing Pavilion were hidden in the dark. Once there was a crisis, those experts would immediately appear. Little brat. After issuing the order, the golden immortal old man cursed with a smile. Thinking about the tens of millions of immortal crystals that seemed to have gone down the drain, he felt unhappy. "My lord." A figure suddenly appeared in front of the old golden immortal. "What is it?" The golden immortal old man raised his glass cup and drank a mouthful of tea. The man respectfully said, "That great Tang who had a free meal in our Stargazing Pavilion and caused us a lot of losses has returned. Moreover, he's being led by an attendant to the tower in the middle." Puffed. The golden immortal old man's face turned purple when he heard that. As he coughed violently, anger flashed across his eyes. He slapped the table and angrily shouted, "Go! Drive that freeloading brat away. Does he think our Stargazing Pavilion is a charity?" "Understood." The man nodded and turned to leave. The golden immortal old man gasped for breath. Before the man left, he called out again, "Forget it. You don't need to care about this matter. I'll go see him myself." The man wore a strange expression, but he still respectfully complied and quickly left. The golden immortal old man rubbed his brows and a wry smile appeared on his old face. He could have sent someone to drive him away if it were any other guest. But when he recalled that the brat was someone his master, Empyrean Pole Madam, admired, he could only grit his teeth and swallow it. Even if he was unwilling, he couldn't drive him away. Soon, the golden immortal old man came to the middle tower. When he reached the 88th floor, he walked straight to a door. When he opened the door, he saw a long table with more than 20 men and women in ragged clothes sitting on both sides. He immediately frowned. He was fuming with anger. Looking at the clothes of these 21 men and women, he couldn't wait to rush to Tan Xiao and slap him a few times. Did they really think this Stargazing Pavilion was a charity? Did they even bring beggars here? However, just as he was cursing in his heart, his expression suddenly froze. This was because at that moment, the The 21 men and women in ragged clothes all turned their heads to look at him. In that instant, the aura that erupted from their bodies caused him to shiver uncontrollably. 21. Golden Immortals? And almost all of them were late-stage Golden Immortals? The Golden Immortal old man dared to swear to heaven that among the 200,000 people Tan Xiao called out from the heavenly abode artifact last time, none of them were Golden Immortals, nor these 21 people. Upon seeing the Golden Immortal old man's arrival, Tan Xiao immediately smiled and got up to greet him. "We're here to disturb you again, Chief Steward. I'm going to treat these 21 new subordinates of mine to a meal today. Send all the good wine and dishes you have here. Don't worry, I won't ask your stargazing pavilion to treat me again. I'll pay for it myself." The Golden Immortal old man forced a smile and sighed. "Great Tang Immortal friend, you're really... forget it. Since there are only 20 of you, this meal is free. However, we're just a small business, and this is the last time we'll be doing this. Besides, we can only provide 23 of you with delicious food." "We'll do as you say, senior," said Tan Xiao with a smile. The Golden Immortal old man shook his head helplessly and turned to leave. Tang Xiao sat back on the chair and looked at the smiling Gu Yan, who had been silent all this time. Then, he glanced at his 21 Golden Immortal subordinates and said in a deep voice, "I bought all of you from the convict arena and gave you a second life. I don't care what your identity was before, nor do I care what experiences you had. From today onwards, all of you will treat your past selves as dead. My name is Great Tang Heavenly Emperor, and you can just call me Master. Your only task from today onward is to protect my safety and obey my orders. Of course, I won't be too harsh on you. As long as you work for me loyally, I'll provide you with a lot of cultivation resources and treat you as my trusted subordinates. I don't have too many rules here, but you can't kill people without my order." Having said that, Tan Xiao took out a cigarette from his interspatial ring, lit it up and took a few puffs. Then, under the watchful eyes of the 21 people, he said again, "Of course, I'll also give you a chance. If you work for me loyally, I'll give you your freedom after 5,000 years. At that time, you can choose to stay by my side or choose to leave. I'll respect all of you." "What?" The 21 Golden Immortals looked at each other in dismay with disbelief in their eyes. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect that the person who bought them would actually give them such a promise. 5,000 years. If they could get a steady stream of cultivation resources, it wouldn't be a problem for them to have a breakthrough in their cultivation with their aptitude. At that time, as long as they broke through to the perfected Golden Immortal stage, they could live long enough to regain their freedom. "Thank you, Master." The 21 men and women stood up one after another, and then knelt on one knee toward Tan Xiao and respectfully thanked him. Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction and motioned them to sit down again. Then he said, "In order to welcome all of you, today's feast is on me. Also, I'll give you some things." Having said that, Tan Xiao gently spread his hand and 21 interspatial rings suddenly appeared in front of them. Tan Xiao said, "There are 1 million immortal crystals in each interspatial ring, as well as 2 sets of combat robes and immortal weapons for you. In addition, there are some medicinal pills with various effects. These are my greeting gifts for you." "Thank you, Master." The 21 men stood up again and knelt on one knee. If most of them were excited before, then they were grateful now. It was because they found that the Master in front of them didn't seem to be a vicious person who would easily destroy their lives. Tan Xiao nodded and said, "From today onwards, all of you will be under Battle Peng's command. Although his cultivation is not as good as yours, I'm the most familiar with him." Battle Peng hurriedly said, "This subordinate will obey Master's orders and work for you wholeheartedly." Tan Xiao raised his hand, and a stream of qi lifted him up. He nodded and said, "I need to tell you something in advance. I'm the Emperor of the Great Tang Empire. You may not know the Great Tang Empire now, and you may not even have heard of this name. But in the future, you will also be a part of the Great Tang Empire." "Yes." The 21 men replied respectfully. This meal, everyone wolfed down the food with grease dripping from their mouths. After becoming the deathmatch gladiators of the convict arena, they had almost never eaten anything. Even if they did eat something, it was only after each victory and some spirit fruits to enjoy. While eating, the 4 female golden immortals almost had tears in their eyes. It was the feeling of surviving a disaster. It suddenly made them feel so blessed. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Tanxiu booked 12 guest rooms in the stargazing pavilion. Every 2 golden immortals could use one room, while Battlepeng, who was their commander, had his own room. Yen, or do you want me to give you a separate room? Tanxiu looked at the smiling Gu Yen'er with a headache. Even though the door to the room was right in front of him, he had a feeling of hesitation. Gu Yen'er didn't speak. Instead, she grabbed Tanxiu's wrist and pulled him into the room. After closing the door directly from the inside, she pulled him to the chair inside and pressed his shoulder to make him sit on the chair. Gu Yen'er took a deep breath and said seriously, "Master, I'll always use this title. But I'm already the princess of the Great Tang Empire, which means I'm your woman. I know it's hard for you to accept it in a short time, but I can wait as long as you don't reject me." Tanxiu smiled bitterly. "Why would I reject you? It's just that." Gu Yen'er shook her head and said, "Let's leave everything to time, master. Unless I die, I'll always be your woman." The 3rd chapter is over. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 1278. Tanxiu couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. Looking at Gu Yen'er's serious expression, he had no other choice but to smile bitterly. It wasn't that he couldn't reject her directly, but he couldn't hurt Gu Yen'er's heart. Perhaps Gu Yen'er was right. Leave everything to time. Tanxiu sighed inwardly. He patted her shoulder and said, "Let's stay here and cultivate in peace for the next few days." 8 months was not a long time. It passed in the blink of an eye. Also, we now have a lot of cultivation resources, so we don't have to worry about the cultivation of all the members of the Great Tang Empire. Gu Yen'er put away her romantic feelings and said, "Master, I also think it's a good thing for us to stay here for a while. Almost all the members of the Great Tang Empire were humans from Earth. Although we have taught them a lot of common knowledge about the immortal world, they have never truly experienced the atmosphere and environment of the immortal world. I think that in the next 8 months, we should let them leave the heavenly abode fairy artifact in batches and train in the vicinity." Tanxiu's eyes lit up. He nodded and said with a smile, "I can't believe I didn't think of such a good idea. I'm really a fool for a lifetime. You're right. Ever since they followed us to the immortal world, they've only been cultivating on that barren planet for a year and a half. Also, they had a meal here the last time. They know too little about the situation in the immortal world." Gu Yen'er said, "Yes. A jade that is not cut and polished will not be of use. People who do not learn will never know. In the future, the entire Great Tang Empire would have to live and work hard in the immortal world. If they didn't even understand the most basic common sense, they would suffer greatly in the future. The way I see it, even if they are loyal to the Great Tang Empire and you, they are still loyal to you. However, I hope that all the members of the Great Tang Empire are the elites of the elites and the powerhouses of the powerhouses." Tanxiu nodded slightly and communicated with the heavenly abode artifact. Soon after, Tang Along appeared in front of Tanxiu. Looking at his curious expression, Tanxiu faintly smiled and said, "From today onwards, you'll follow me to learn and cultivate. In the next 8 months, the members of the Great Tang Empire will come out of the heavenly abode artifact in batches to train within a radius of 1,000,000 miles." Tang Along was pleasantly surprised. "That's great. All the members of the Great Tang Empire are now hoping to come out of the heavenly abode artifact and see the real immortal world. Master, how about I arrange for them?" Tanxiu smiled and said, "Then you need to tell me first, how are you going to arrange for them?" Tang Along pondered for a few minutes and said, "You just said that we'll stay here for 8 months, master. To have them all outside for 8 months would be contrary to your wishes. I suggest one batch every 2 months, with each batch having 60,000 members. Then, a commander-in-chief will be selected from these 60,000 people, followed by a deputy commander-in-chief for every 10,000 people. Finally, after layers of separation, Every member over the age of 30 will be able to take care of 6 children of the 4 major legions. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, "Not bad. It's really not easy for you to think of so many things in such a short time. Then, we'll make some adjustments and decisions based on your proposal. We must ensure the safety of the Great Tang Empire's members as much as possible. Then we'll start tomorrow." "There's another issue, Master," Tang Along quickly asked. "Although every member has received immortal stones and immortal crystals before, the amount is still not much. Everyone wants to absorb and refine them to increase their cultivation. So, can you ask the Ministry of Finance to give us some more immortal stones?" Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, "Give each of them 100 immortal crystals. As for how to use them, let them decide." A happy look appeared on Tang Along's face. He nodded repeatedly and directly returned to the Heavenly Abode artifact to make arrangements. Tan Xiu called Gu Xiaoxue out of the Heavenly Abode artifact and directly gave her the 1 million crystal essences he won from 9 Nether Swordmeister. These crystal essences would not be used for the time being. After all, it would be a waste to use them before reaching the immortal stage. However, Tan Xiu also took out 100,000 crystal essences for the 35,680 monster immortals to use for the time being. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed and only 3 months were left before 9 Nether Swordmeisters bet with the others in the convict arena. In the past 5 months, a total of 2 batches of 120,000 members of the Great Tang Empire had experienced the outside world and had made good progress both in terms of knowledge and strength. The 3rd batch of members was currently moving freely outside. Of course, the plan drawn up by Tang Along was much more detailed than what he had said before. Therefore, although the members of the Great Tang Empire were training outside, they didn't cause any big trouble. There were some small troubles, but they were easily solved. In addition, the Intelligence Division, which was personally controlled by Tan Xiu, left directly with a sum of immortal crystals after receiving Tan Xiu's order. They were not in the scope of the training, but Tan Xiu ordered Jin Shi and Yi Shisan to arrive at the Immortal Lyceum's territory within 3 years no matter what methods they used. The Intelligence Division didn't have many members, only 3,000 in total, and all of them were powerful characters who were good at gathering intelligence. Although these 3,000 people were under the control of Jin Shi and Yi Shisan, Tan Xiu still assigned 2 late-stage golden immortals to protect them. There was also the Assassination Division. Tang and led Feng Yang and Shui Gui, as well as 500 experts proficient in assassination from the Assassination Division. Under the protection of 2 late-stage golden immortals, they would directly experience 8 months of training. What made Tan Xiu at a loss whether to laugh or cry was Gu Xiaoxue and his aunt Tang Min. The 2 of them were in charge of the Finance Division. In just 5 months, they learned all kinds of common knowledge in the immortal world, and used their business acumen to earn more than 2 million immortal crystals with 500,000 immortal crystals as their capital. This kind of ability, Tan Xiu was truly amazed. Stargazing Pavilion. Tan Xiu was sitting cross-legged on a futon with a demon stone in each hand. He quickly absorbed and refined them to enhance his strength bit by bit. Finally, when he completely absorbed and refined the last 2 demon stones he had, a wry smile appeared on his handsome face. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis was a cultivation technique that even demon gods regarded as a treasure. The effect of absorbing immortal force wasn't that great. At most, it could only make the primal chaos force in his body more and more powerful. But what he needed the most was his body. With this heaven-defying fiend celestial body, he could kill ordinary immortals with the pure strength of his body, even without cultivation. He was confident that he could even fight an earthly immortal. Tan Xiu looked at Gu Yan'er, who was sitting cross-legged on the opposite side. Gu Yan'er opened her eyes and asked, "What's the matter, master?" "I'm going to take Tang Along out for a stroll, and buy some things on the way," said Tan Xiu. "You can stay here and cultivate. If I don't come back in a month, you can send the 4th batch of members out to gain experience after the 3rd batch returns." Gu Yan'er thought for a while and said, "No problem. I'll take care of the Heavenly Abode artifact first. However, you need to take all 17 golden immortals with you, master." Otherwise, I'll be worried about your safety. You don't need to be so nervous. Tanxiu shook his head and smilingly said, Hessian Castle may be very large, but we won't go too far. Besides, Nine Nether Swordmeister's residence isn't far from here. I'll contact him immediately if I have no other choice. I'm sure he'll be able to arrive in time. Gu Yanner said, Master, it's better if you bring more people. I'll feel more at ease. I'll take Battle Pung and 6 late-stage golden immortals with me, said Tanxiu. All right. Gu Yanner nodded reluctantly. She still believed in those golden immortals she bought from the convict arena. After all, those who could survive in a place like the convict arena were definitely formidable characters who had gone through hundreds of battles. Suddenly, Tanxiu's expression slightly changed. He instantly stretched out his hand and Star Devourer insect quickly flew out of his body. At this moment, Tanxiu heard the insect's voice. Immortal stones, immortal crystals, give me as many as you have. Hurry up. Tanxiu's expression slightly changed. After handing the Heavenly Abode artifact to Gu Yanner, he instantly entered the artifact with Star Devourer insect. When the two of them came to an empty area, he quickly took out tens of thousands of immortal crystals from his interspatial ring and asked in a deep voice, Are you going to break through? Yes. Star Devourer insect only replied one sentence before it unleashed a terrifying devouring force and continuously swallowed tens of thousands of immortal crystals. Immediately after, Star Devourer insect's body began to expand. From the size of a fingernail, it expanded to a height of more than 10 meters in just half a minute. Its huge body was just like a small hill. A surging aura emanated from its body. The aura was so huge that even Tanxiu's expression slightly changed. Tanxiu took a deep breath and took out millions of immortal crystals from his interspatial ring. He threw them to Star Devourer insect and shouted, Devour as much as you can. I'll provide as much as you can. Remember, strive to break through directly and become as strong as possible. Yes. Star Devourer insect was excited. With Tanxiu's assurance, its eruption of devouring force became stronger and stronger. The millions of immortal crystals were continuously swallowed into its belly. Immediately after, its physique skyrocketed again. After 8 days, Star Devourer insect's body stopped expanding and its aura stabilized at a high level. The moment it raised its head to the sky and roared, Tanxiu immediately punched it. Shut up. Do you want to kill everyone in this Heavenly Abode artifact? Shouted Tanxiu angrily. Star Devourer insect's aura quickly converged, and its body quickly shrunk. In a moment, it shrunk to the size of a fist and floated in front of Tanxiu, saying, I'm a bit excited that my power skyrocketed. But I feel that I'm really powerful now, at least stronger than you. Tanxiu rolled his eyes and snappily said, You're now comparable to a golden immortal, so of course you're stronger than me. But you've also devoured too many of my immortal crystals. Chapter 1279. Star Devourer insect's body began to transform. In just a short while, it turned into a miniature creature with a hard shell on its back, but a human head and 4 limbs. It laughed and said excitedly, So I'm comparable to a golden immortal now. That's great. Don't worry. I'll repay you 1,000,000 times in the future after I swallow your immortal crystals. Having said that, it spun around lightly and asked with a grin, How is it? Is it cool? Is it cool? Is it flashy? Well, the language of humans on Earth is really interesting. I miss the days when I was with you on Earth. Tanxiu looked at it with a faint smile and said, How about I send you back to Earth? No need. Star Devourer insect laughed dryly. Although there are many interesting things on Earth, I still prefer this place. Heavens! Delicacies, immortal crystals, rich immortal qi, and all kinds of fascinating mineral resources. Most importantly, my most favorite master is here. Bootlicker. Tanxiu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Suddenly, he saw the flattering expression on its face and suddenly had a bad premonition. He looked at it vigilantly and asked, I've already provided you with a lot of immortal crystals. What else do you want? China's culture is broad and profound. You know this. There's a saying in it, don't be greedy and stop before going too far. Star Devourer Insect said, Master, you humans need to eat, right? Tanshio said, you won't need to eat after your cultivation becomes stronger. Star Devourer Insect said with a bit of grievance, but I'm still young. Tanshio really lost to it. How could a being comparable to a golden immortal tell him that he was still young? This bastard, who is many times older than me, actually knows how to act young. Why didn't I discover this before? Spit it out if you have something to say. Let's make this clear first. I have a big business, and everyone in the Great Tang Empire needs to rely on me to support them. So if you still want immortal crystals, then I'm really sorry. Star Devourer Insect said, I don't want immortal crystals. You just need to provide me with ores, metals, or anything else. As long as it's not garbage, it can become my nourishment. I can also extract the essence from it and absorb it. Master, don't you want a superstar devourer insect to be your bodyguard? No, to be your hired thug. If you don't like anyone, I'll just swallow him. Tanshio looked at it strangely and asked, you didn't just improve your strength, right? I think your IQ has also evolved. Star Devourer Insect beamed with joy and said, now that I've been taken into your body, Master, what you've experienced is what I've experienced. So of course I have to raise my IQ, or else I'd be letting down Master's reward. Damn you. When Tanshio thought of the things between him and the women, he couldn't help but curse. However, on second thought, why would he care about a bug? What did it know about the matters between men and women? All right, I'll provide it to you in the future. After saying that, Tanshio directly stored it into his body. When he left the heavenly abode artifact and appeared in front of Gu Yan, he said with a faint smile, you can rest assured that I have another golden immortal hatchet man. I guarantee there won't be any danger. Star Devourer Insect has actually broken through to the golden immortal stage. Gu Yan was surprised. Its cultivation speed is really fast. If my guess is correct, those 35,000 monster immortals will probably break through to the golden immortal stage soon, said Tanshio. After all, they have lived for too long, and their strength will advance by leaps and bounds after they obtain immortal cultivation techniques. Just wait and see. It won't be long before our Great Tang Empire will have tens of thousands of golden immortals. Gu Yan nodded with a smile. But then, her expression changed slightly. She realized that although she could still hold the position of the strongest powerhouse in the Great Tang Empire now, her position would be in jeopardy if a large number of golden immortals appeared in a while. Breakthrough. She must break through to the perfected golden immortal stage as soon as possible. As long as she could return to the perfected golden immortal stage, she would be able to maintain her position as the strongest powerhouse in the Great Tang Empire. Green Summit Bazaar. It was a street in a remote area of moon-gazing Monarch City. The environment here was ordinary, and the floors weren't particularly high. However, all the people who lived in moon-gazing Monarch City knew that it was a chaotic place. People from all walks of life gathered here, and brothels and casinos could be seen everywhere. A huge black market had gradually formed in such a mixed place. Inside the black market, many things that couldn't be found anywhere else in moon-gazing Monarch City could be found here. For example, there were still a lot of evil things here. Even things from the Demon Realm, Monster Realm, Azura Realm, and other worlds could be found here. As long as one had enough immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences in their interspatial rings, they could buy whatever they liked here. Tanshio, Tang Along, Battle Pung, and several other golden immortal experts disguised as ordinary cultivators and mingled in the Green Summit Bazaar. Tanshio's main purpose this time was to buy the resources needed to cultivate the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, so he, an outsider, was looking for a guide. Dragonfly. He was a nobody who mingled at the bottom of the Green Summit Bazaar. He was the kind of person who was smooth and slick in dealing with people and ghosts. In short, he relied on his shrewdness to live a comfortable life. Guide. It was one of his identities that he used to earn extra money. However, he had been mingling here for hundreds of years. Yet he had never met a real local tycoon, nor had he received any big rewards. At the entrance of a spirit beast shop, Dragonfly leaned on the door of the shop, looking bored. His eyes casually glanced at the crowd coming and going. Suddenly, his expression changed, and his eyes locked on a group of 9 people passing by not far away. He had a special ability that only he knew. It was the ability to sense the aura of others. Even if the other party converged all their aura, he could still sense them and judge their approximate cultivation level. An ordinary immortal, accompanied by an ordinary cultivator, and 7 golden immortal experts. They're not from the Green Summit Bazaar because I've never seen them before. Judging from their appearance, they're here to buy something. Perhaps it's because they're not familiar with this place, so they're just searching blindly. After Dragonfly judged this, he immediately went to greet the 9 people. A smile hung on his delicate and pretty face. When he blocked the way of Tanxio's group of 9, he nodded and bowed, saying with a smile, "Do you need a guide, sirs? I'm Dragonfly, an inquisitive person in this Green Summit Bazaar. If you want to buy some special things, if you need something, just tell me and I'll take you to the best place to buy what you want." "Tell me your price," said Tanxio. Upon hearing this, Dragonfly immediately rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "Sirs, you've encountered the best guide, so the price will be much more expensive. 2 immortal stones a day. Of course, the price I charge is higher than others, but that's because I can help you bargain when you buy things. If anyone dares to cheat you, I promise to expose them. Also, there's one more thing, I promise not to eat the bonus." "Do you understand the meaning of eating the bonus?" "I understand." Tanxio nodded. Eating the bonus was some guides that would take the guests to familiar shops. After the guests bought something, they would get some commission from those shops. Tanxio looked at Dragonfly and smilingly said, "You have an interesting name, and your self-recommendation is quite effective. I'm indeed here to buy some things. If you can serve me well, I'll give you 2 immortal crystals a day." "Don't worry, I promise I'll do well." Suddenly, his words came to an abrupt halt. An incredulous look appeared on his delicate and pretty face. He blinked and then stammered, What did you say? You can give me 2 immortal crystals a day? And not immortal stones?" "You didn't hear it wrong." Tanxio lightly smiled and said, "If you can do well in the task, not only will I give you 2 immortal crystals a day, but I'll also give you a good reward after I buy all the things I need. As for the amount of the reward, it will depend on your ability in the process." Dragonfly looked ecstatic as he repeatedly nodded and bowed. "You can rest assured, master. I, Dragonfly, swear to the heavenly Tao that I'll do my best to serve you. In the following days, you'll be my heaven, my earth, my food, my parents, and my great benefactor. You can tell me now what kind of items you want to buy, and I'll take you there right away. You should know where to sell demon stones, right?" asked Tanxio. Dragonfly stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said, "I know. Almost all the things sold in the Dark Court Corridor are from the demon realm. Besides, the Dark Court Corridor is also the shop with the most demon stones in the entire Green Summit Bazaar. Lead the way." Tanxio nodded and said. The Dark Court Corridor was deep in the Green Summit Bazaar, and extended far to the side. When everyone came here, Tanxio found that this Dark Court Corridor was actually a very high-grade demon tool. Apart from its defensive function, it didn't have any offensive function, so it became a shop. After everyone came to the interior of the Dark Court Corridor, they found that there were many stalls and independent shops inside. Behind each stall and in each shop, there were people selling demon realm items. "Do you want to buy or sell?" 2 majestic big men in black armor came to greet them. Their eyes swept over everyone as the big man on the left asked in a deep voice. "I want to buy," said Tanxio. The big man on the left nodded and said, 1 immortal stone per person as the entrance fee." Tanxio casually took out 10 immortal stones and handed them over. After watching them leave, he then looked at the stalls and independent shops inside. Dragonfly was obviously a frequent visitor here as he greeted many stall owners and shop owners with a smile. Chapter 1280. Walking slowly along the dark corridor, Tanxio's eyes constantly swept across the stalls on both sides. His divine sense enveloped the surrounding area, observing the items in the stalls and independent shops. He did find some magic stones, but after seeing the things here, he suddenly realized that there were more things that were better for him than magic stones, such as magic cores and magic marrow. In addition, there were also a lot of magic fruits and magic liquids. What surprised Tan Xiao the most was that someone actually dared to sell magic cores. One must know, items from the demon realm had always been rejected by the orthodox immortals. Some people with a sense of justice would even forcibly kill those who sold items from the demon realm. Tan Xiao was not that kind of extreme person. In his opinion, there were many good things in the demon realm. If it could be used properly, the effect would be better than the things in the immortal realm. Cockroach had been following Tan Xiao. Although he kept greeting the stall owners and shop owners, his eyes mostly stayed on Tan Xiao. After walking for a kilometer, Cockroach finally couldn't help but ask, "Master, are you considering which stall or shop? If this is the reason, I suggest you go to the Great Demon Venerable's shop to buy things. Although the prices there are very expensive, the good things are the most comprehensive." Tan Xiao said, "Take us there." All right. Cockroach took Tan Xiao and the others hundreds of meters forward, and finally stopped outside an independent shop. His eyes glanced at the shop assistant inside the door, and then shouted, "Hairy Teeth, don't play tricks with this young master. Honored guests have come. Hurry up and let the Great Demon Venerable come out to greet them." The shop assistant rolled his eyes and glanced at Tan Xiao and the others a few times, and then slowly shouted inside, "Uncle 18, there are guests coming. Come out and greet them." After a while, when Tan Xiao and the others stepped into the shop, they saw a middle-aged man who was as fat as a big ball walking out lazily. His narrow eyes swept across Tan Xiao and the others before he asked with a smile, "What would you like to buy?" Tan Xiao withdrew his divine sense. Since they were not the only customers in the shop, he said, "Demon stones, demon pith, demon fruit, and demon liquid. Of course, if the quality of your magic dan is not bad, I want it too." A big customer, Great Demon Venerable, was surprised. He grinned and said, "Honored guest, the things you need are on display in the shop. You can directly pick them up and then calculate the total price. Don't worry, if you buy a lot of things, I will give you a discount." All right. Tan Xiao took the interspatial ring handed over by the Great Demon Venerable. He walked past the shelves and put the magic stones, magic marrow, magic fruit, and magic liquid into the interspatial ring. Because each item had a price tag, Tan Xiao knew the value of these things. Finally, Tan Xiao stopped in the innermost corner and looked at the dozens of bottles and jars on the shelves. A glint flashed in his eyes as he put all the magic dan on the shelves into the interspatial ring. Just as he was about to leave, 5 figures blocked his way. "Sir, no matter how rich you are, you don't need to sweep everything here, do you? I really need this miasma pill. I've been looking for it in many places before I found it here. I'll pay double the price. How about you give it to me?" said the burly man with an indifferent expression. "Sorry, first come first served." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "This miasma pill is also very useful to me, so I can't transfer it to you." A cold light flashed in the burly man's eyes as he indifferently said, "You haven't paid the bill yet, have you?" "Not yet." Tan Xiao nodded. "You haven't paid the bill yet, so it's not yours," said the burly man. "Since it's from this shop, it's only natural that the highest bidder gets it. I'm too lazy to deal with you. So let's compare our wealth and see who can afford the higher price. How about it? I've already put it in my interspatial ring, so I have the first right to buy it." Tan Xiao shook his head. "You can't get it unless I give it up. Brat, do you want to court death? My young master wants it, so you must take it out, else I'll make sure you won't be able to walk out of the Green Summit Bazaar." An old man behind the burly man shouted with an intense killing intent on his face. Tan Xiao glanced at him indifferently. His eyes then fell on the burly man's face as he lightly smiled and said, "Is this also your idea?" The burly man didn't speak, but his cold eyes explained his attitude. Tan Xiao turned to look at the Great Demon Venerable and lightly smiled. "Who do you want to sell it to?" The Great Demon Venerable let out a hollow laugh and said, "Please discuss it. You can pay the bill after you've discussed it." Tan Xiao looked at the burly man again and nodded. Since you want to compete with me in wealth, then I'll make you disgrace yourself. A bottle of miasma pills is worth 80,000 immortal crystals. I'll pay 800,000 immortal crystals for it, 10 times the price. Do you want to bid higher than me? I'll pay 1 million immortal crystals, said the burly man with a sneer. 2 million, said Tanxio. 3 million. The burly man spoke again. Tanxio slightly furrowed his brows. After thinking for a while, he angrily said, 10 million immortal crystals. I'll pay 10 million immortal crystals. Do you still dare to bid? The chill in the burly man's eyes intensified as he stared at Tanxio as though he wanted to see through Tanxio. After a long time he coldly said, 11 million immortal crystals. Tanxio rolled his eyes and murmured, are all the rich people nowadays fools? This miasma pill is worth 100,000 immortal crystals at most, yet you're willing to pay 11 million immortal crystals. You're really stupid. Forget it, I don't want to offend you. I'll give it to you since you want it. I won't say anything if you're willing to pay 80,000 immortal crystals. After saying that, he took out the miasma pill from his interspatial ring and threw it to the burly man. Then he handed the interspatial ring to the great demon Venerable. He looked at the great demon Venerable's angry face and lightly smiled. I've bought a lot of things and I've also provoked you. I hope you can give me a discount, else I won't mind publicizing what happened today. The great demon Venerable was angry that Tanxio was willing to pay 80,000 immortal crystals for the miasma pill. But his price was there, and it was Tanxio and the burly man who had a dispute just now, so he could only suppress his anger. As his spiritual sense swept the interspatial ring, he said, 64,720,000 immortal crystals. Since you bought so many things, I'll give you a discount. I don't want the 20,000 immortal crystals. Is this your discount? Tanxio frowned. Do you think I'm short of immortal crystals? Great demon Venerable coldly snorted and said, I'm not happy, so I'll give you a discount. You can buy it if you want, but scram if you don't. At the side, Dragonfly's complexion changed and he said in a deep voice, I've always respected you, Great Demon Venerable. That's why I brought him to your shop as soon as I met him. Come to think of it, in the past 50 years, I've brought you at least a few hundred guests. Although you also rewarded me with a lot of immortal stones, you earned more. It took me a lot of effort to get this gentleman to come to you. I'll immediately leave with this lord if you shut the door because of your anger. I'll never step into your shop again in the future. A murderous glint flashed in Great Demon Venerable's eyes as he glared at Dragonfly. He quickly thought about it and finally, the icy expression on his face dissipated a lot and he angrily said, You little bastard, you dare to threaten me? You're really capable now. Forget it. 64 million. I'll take the 720,000 immortal crystals from you. Dragonfly observed Tanxio. Looking at his indifferent expression, he suddenly gritted his teeth and said, Great Demon Venerable, you're the one I've always respected the most. You're even my idol. I've fantasized countless times that I can be as powerful as you in the future and become a businessman like you. The things this lord has bought are more than what dozens of people have bought in the past. I'm afraid the profit is unimaginable. Hence, 60 million immortal crystals. If you can sell it for 60 million, I'll introduce all the guests I've won to you in the future. That's impossible. Great Demon Venerable nearly jumped up and angrily yelled. My profit from these things is less than 72 million immortal crystals, yet you want me to reduce it by so much? Are you crazy? I don't want the commission from all the customers I've brought later, Dragonfly said aloud. Great Demon Venerable's breathing stagnated as he incredulously looked at Dragonfly and asked, What the hell are you talking about? Who the hell is this brat to you? You're even willing to cut off your source of income for him? This lord is a good man, said Dragonfly with all seriousness. The tips he gave me were much more than those people before. Furthermore, he didn't reprimand or despise me and even gave a little bit of respect to a nobody like me. Hence, I'm willing to pay some price for this lord. Great Demon Venerable fell into silence. He looked at Dragonfly and then at Tanxio. After a long while, he shook his head and sighed. Forget it. I won't insist on my previous price. 62 million immortal crystals. Pay up quickly if you're willing, but leave immediately if you don't. Tan Xiu patted Dragonfly's shoulder and directly took out an interspatial ring and handed it to Great Demon Venerable, saying, "There are 600,000 crystal essences and 2 million immortal crystals inside." Great Demon Venerable counted and finally nodded. "That's right. The amount is enough. If you still need other things, just pick whatever you want. Leave now if you don't want anything else." Tan Xiu glanced at the burly man at the side who seemed to be watching the fun and said, "It's better to get rid of enmity than to keep it alive. It can be said that no discord, no concord. Farewell, we'll meet again if fate wills it." The burly man directly turned his face to the side and sneered inwardly. He was very vengeful, and he still remembered that Tan Xiu had just cursed him. Chapter 1281. After leaving the shop, Tan Xiu didn't directly leave the Green Summit Bazaar. If he hadn't had a conflict with the burly man, perhaps he would have saved some of his wealth and saved it for a rainy day. But now what he wanted to do was to spend money like crazy. At the very least, he wanted to spend all the immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences he had. Crazy. Dragonfly had previously realized that Tan Xiu should have a lot of wealth, but he never thought that Tan Xiu's wealth would be so terrifying. In just 3 days, Dragonfly calculated in his mind and found that the total number of Tan Xiu's spending had exceeded hundreds of millions of immortal crystals. Hundreds of millions of immortal crystals. Dragonfly had heard that many super powerhouses had wealth of more than hundreds of millions of immortal crystals, but he never imagined that someone could spend so much wealth in just a few days. It's about time. When Tan Xiu came out of a shop with everyone, he was already satisfied. The price of spending hundreds of millions of immortal crystals was that he wouldn't need to worry about cultivation resources for a long time in the future. Even the cultivation resources he had now were enough for him to make another breakthrough and reach the second stage, the 9th level of the Stellar Heavenly Essence. Once he broke through to the 9th level, he would be comparable to a powerhouse at the peak of the Golden Immortal stage. He would even be able to kill people who were at the early or intermediate stage of the perfected Golden Immortal stage. Tan Xiu's gaze shifted to the flattering Dragonfly. He raised his hand and patted his shoulder. Then he took out 10 crystal essences and handed them to him, saying, "Considering that you've worked hard to accompany me to shop for the past 4 days and haggled the price, this is your reward." Dragonfly's expression became sluggish, his eyes revealing a look of disbelief. Even his hands, which were holding the 10 crystal essences, were slightly trembling. Crystal essences? And 10 at that? One must know that a crystal essence could be exchanged for 10,000 immortal stones. 10 crystal essences were equal to 100,000 immortal stones. Dragonfly had lived for 100 years, and was now a nascent soul expert. But he never dreamed that he could earn 100,000 immortal stones in this life, because so many immortal stones were an enormous amount in his eyes. Tan Xiu faintly smiled, but inwardly he felt a bit apologetic. That was because he only had 10 crystal essences left on him. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have minded giving more to the Dragonfly. "Let's meet again." Having said that, he took Tang Along, Battlepung, and the other 6 golden immortals to the end of Green Peak Bazaar. Dragonfly held the 10 crystal essences and slowly raised his head to look at Tan Xiu's back. His lips squirmed a few times, and suddenly, an aura erupted from his body. Although it was very weak, his eyes were particularly firm. He went straight to the direction where Tan Xiu left and knelt on both knees, shouting, "Master, can you accept me? I, Dragonfly, am willing to follow you forever." Tan Xiu stopped, and the 8 people behind him stepped aside. Tan Xiu looked at the kneeling Dragonfly, and a strange expression appeared on his face. It was a familiar scene. Did it happen nearly 1,000 years ago? That ragged little beggar with a head full of dirt. His eyes filled with gratitude, begging, and determination. How similar were the eyes of Dragonfly. Tan Xiu still remembered that he accepted the little beggar as his disciple. The little beggar followed him and devoted himself to cultivation until he became a perfected golden immortal. It was also because he unintentionally said that he wanted a special flower from the endless abyss. The little beggar went through thousands of celestial domains, and went deep into the endless abyss, risking his life to pluck that special flower. It was also because of this strange flower that the little beggar was chased by a group of perfected golden immortals from a large sect. They chased him through many immortal domains. That time, Tan Xiu was too late. When he arrived, he had already slaughtered all those perfected golden immortals. Finally, he held the dying little beggar, took the strange flower with tears in his eyes, and watched the little beggar's soul fly away and scatter. It was also at that time that Tan Xiu slaughtered the entire sect, a total of more than 48,000 immortals, including one supreme, 34 perfected golden immortals, and countless golden immortals. Step by step, Tan Xiu walked to the front of Dragonfly and looked at the familiar eyes. He murmured, "Give me a reason." Dragonfly said, "I work hard for you, and you make me stronger." Tan Xiu's heart fiercely twitched a few times. He could hardly believe his ears because he asked the same question back then, and the little beggar gave the same answer. It was exactly the same. Not a single word was wrong. Tan Xiu clenched his fists and slowly loosened them. When he reached out to pull Dragonfly up, he said word by word, "Dragonfly, you're my disciple from today onward. I want you to work hard for me, but I also want you to become stronger." "Master." Dragonfly knelt down again, and directly kowtowed 3 times to Tan Xiu. He was eager for an opportunity. He wanted to become stronger. Although Tan Xiu was just an ordinary immortal in his eyes who hadn't even reached the Earth Immortal stage, he believed that Tan Xiu was very powerful. After all, not everyone could go out with 7 golden immortals. Tang Along let out a smile. This time he reached out to pull Dragonfly up and smilingly said, "My name is Tang Along. Call me Senior Brother Alang." Dragonfly stared blankly and respectfully called out, "Senior Brother Alang." The smile on Tang Along's face turned thicker. He took out 9 crystal essences from his interspatial ring and handed them to Dragonfly. "Master gave you 10 crystal essences, but I can't give more than Master. I'll give you 9 crystal essences. It's the red envelope I gave you for our first meeting." "Thank you, Senior Brother Alang," said Dragonfly gratefully. Tan Xiu smiled and asked, "We're not from Hessian Castle, so we'll leave this immortal domain in a few months." "We're not from Hessian Castle. We'll leave this immortal region in a few months. I only have a friend who left with a caravan 2 years ago, and is not in this immortal domain." "If that's the case, then follow me." Tan Xiu nodded. "I only have a friend who left with a caravan 2 years ago, and is not in this immortal domain. When you become stronger in the future, as long as that friend of yours is still alive, there will come a day when you will meet him." "All right." Dragonfly firmly nodded with a firm look in his eyes. He understood what Tan Xiu meant. It was almost impossible to meet him again in the vast immortal world. There was only one way for him to reunite with his friends, and that was to become a true powerhouse and let everyone in the immortal world know his name. At that time, he only needed to say a word and countless people would help him find his friend. It was even possible that his friend would find him because of his fame. At the entrance of the Green Peak Bazaar, Tan Xiu quietly sat in the tea house near the entrance, watching the street outside the window, and quietly tasting the immortal tea in his cup. Aside from Tang Along, Dragonfly, and Battlepung were the only golden immortal around him. The other 6 were nowhere to be found. Half a day passed by in a hurry. When one of the golden immortals, Kahale, appeared in front of Tan Xiu, his eyes gleamed and he reported, "Master, the investigation has been done. The other party is the young master of Hessian Castle's Hunter clan, Traceless Hunter. He's a sword immortal, and has 4 golden immortals with him. They're also the Hunter clan's experts responsible for protecting Traceless Hunter." "Where is he?" asked Tan Xiu calmly. "Drunk in Moon Inn," said Kahale. "The 6 of them are hiding in the dark and monitoring him." Tan Xiu calmly said, "This Green Peak Bazaar isn't suitable for fighting. Let's wait. As the young master of a clan, he shouldn't be poor. I hope he doesn't let me down." "I have an idea to make him leave this place earlier, Master," said Tang Along with a smile. "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Tang Along came to Tan Xiu's side and whispered a few words. The smile on Tan Xiu's face turned thicker. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "It's a bit despicable, but it's the simplest and most effective way. Go arrange it. Make him leave the Green Peak Bazaar as soon as possible." Drunken Moon Inn. This was the highest grade restaurant in the Green Peak Bazaar. The delicious food and wine made countless people who liked to enjoy their meals linger and forget to go home. As the young master of the Hunter clan, Traceless Hunter had a distinguished status and many hobbies in his life, one of which was eating delicious food. Immortal goose liver, sky deer tongue, fish gelatin. As the delicious dishes were served, Traceless Hunter's mouth was full of grease and he kept drinking cups of immortal wine. Finally, after finishing the delicious dishes, he wiped the corner of his mouth with satisfaction and sighed. The Green Peak Bazaar is really a good place. There are many special ingredients here that can't be found in many places outside. Not bad at all. Let's take a stroll later and buy a lot of the precious ingredients from the demon realm. Understood. An old man among the 4 golden immortals respectfully replied. Traceless Hunter turned to look outside the window. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he lightly said, "That brat is quite interesting. He hasn't left the Green Peak Bazaar yet. He's bought a lot of things in the past few days. Although many of them are useless to me, I can still sell them for a high price. Listen, if he hasn't left in 10 days, sprinkle the soul-chasing incense on him. I'll take his life and all his wealth as long as he dares to step out of the Green Peak Bazaar." "This subordinate will definitely handle this matter well, young master," said the old man respectfully. Traceless Hunter nodded with satisfaction. He raised his hand to touch his chin and said, "I've almost forgotten how long it has been since the last person who scolded me. To be honest, I was very angry when I was scolded, but now I find it a bit strange. Don't kill him directly after he leaves the Green Peak Bazaar. I need to seal his mouth and then scold him to my heart's content before killing him." Suddenly, his ears twitched. After a quarter of an hour, his expression turned incredulous and a flame of anger directly burned in his eyes. His eyes shifted to the street outside the window and locked on several passers-by who were chatting and laughing. He gritted his teeth and said, "Go and catch them for me." Chapter 1282. In front of outsiders, Traceless Hunter had always been clean and honest. He regarded his family and his reputation as more important than his life. Even if he had done a lot of despicable and shameless things, he did it in secret, and then tried his best to erase the traces as soon as possible. However, he had just heard the passers-by below smearing his name. Not only did they say that he was despicable, shameless, sinister, and vulgar, but they also said that he was a homosexual and had a lot of male pets in private. Pet his grandpa. Traceless Hunter clenched his fists tightly and a crazy killing intent flashed in his eyes. He looked at the 4 passers-by who had their limbs broken and were dragged by his subordinates like dead dogs. He got up and came to the man who had just splashed dirty water on him. He grabbed his lapel and sternly shouted, "This lord is the Hunter clan's young master, the Traceless Hunter you mentioned. What kind of enmity do we have between us that you dare to splash dirty water on me and ruin my reputation?" The man whose limbs were broken looked fearful. He desperately shook his head and said, No. This lowly one is not qualified to have enmity with you, young Master Hunter. I just heard it from the grapevine. Everyone in the Green Summit Bazaar is talking about you now. What I just said was all from their mouths." "What?" Traceless Hunter was dumbfounded. He never dreamed that the entire Green Summit Bazaar was talking about him. Who was it? Who was splashing dirty water on him? Who was it that wanted to ruin his reputation? He didn't notice it. Many people in the restaurant were already looking in his direction. They didn't realize that the 4 men he had sent out to beat up the passers-by and roared angrily had been seen and heard by those people. It was also for this reason that his words, which were deliberately smeared by others, became true in everyone's eyes. At the side, a chilling light flashed in the eyes of the old man in the lead as he said in a heavy tone, "Young lord, someone must be deliberately spreading rumors to ruin your reputation. This subordinate will find out who it is and make him die without a burial place." Find out. You must find out who it is. Traceless Hunter snapped. Those who dare to bully me must be dismembered to pieces. The people in the surroundings looked at each other in dismay. Making others die without a burial place? And dismembered to pieces? Listening to these words, it was really vicious. The passerby who had his limbs broken and thrown on the ground immediately looked horrified and cried out involuntarily. I know where the person who spread the rumor is. They left the Green Summit Bazaar. I heard that they are heading in the direction of the Black Wind Forest. Who's the other party? Scarless Hunter snapped. The passerby said with a sad face. I don't know, we really don't know. However, it was said that there was a person who spread the news, and after he finished speaking, he clamored about going to the Black Wind Forest to hunt vicious beasts. We can't be sure if he was the one who spread the news first. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. Since they dare to spread the news and fabricate rumors to slander me, then they must pay a painful price. Let's go to the Black Wind Forest. At the side, one of the elders hastily said, Young master, they only heard rumors. Those people might not have gone to the Black Wind Forest. Traceless Hunter sneered and said, I'd rather believe it's true than not. As long as we follow the clues, we will definitely be able to find them. Half a quarter of an hour later, Traceless Hunter appeared at the entrance of the Green Summit Bazaar with his 4 golden immortal subordinates. His sharp eyes swept over the tea house on the side, and he let out a cold snort before he left lightning fast. Traceless Hunter believed that those who scolded him in front of his face were also the ones who would eventually give in. He hated them more than those who spread rumors to slander him. A quarter of an hour later, Tan Xiao took Tang Along, Dragonfly, and Battlepung to the Black Wind Forest according to the directions given by his 6 golden immortal subordinates. Their speed wasn't very fast, but half an hour later, they appeared near a group of people who were fighting. Boom! An early-stage golden immortal expert from the Hunter clan was bombarded in the chest by a streak of light. His body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Traceless Hunter and the other 3 golden immortal experts all looked horrified. They wanted to rescue their companions, but the 6 enemies were too strong. So strong that they faintly felt despair. It's him. The despair on Traceless Hunter's face turned more intense after he saw Tan Xiao and the others appear. At this moment, he would be too stupid if he still couldn't realize that all of this was a trap for him. He even guessed that the ones who spread the rumors and slandered him were Tan Xiao and his men. Who the hell are you bastard brat? Traceless Hunter roared angrily while desperately resisting. A contemptuous look appeared on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth as he laughed aloud. You don't need to know who I am, you bastard brat. It's because I want you to be a muddled ghost. No, that's not right. Your soul is about to scatter, so it's impossible for you to be a muddled ghost. You took the initiative to admit defeat in the Green Summit Bazaar. Was that intentional? Traceless Hunter angrily shouted. Of course it was intentional. Tan Xiao chuckled. If I didn't do it on purpose, wouldn't you have given those tens of millions of immortal crystals to Great Demon Venerable? It's better for me to snatch them than to let him have it. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. I wouldn't have dared to spend all my immortal crystals and crystal essences if it weren't for your killing intent toward me. Aren't you afraid of my Hunter clan's revenge? Traceless Hunter angrily shouted. Killing people and destroying their corpses is what I'm best at. Tan Xiao sneered. Do you think your Hunter clan's people will know who did it if I kill you today? All of you. Go all out to avoid any unforeseen events. Understood. The 6 late-stage golden immortals no longer held back. They were all ruthless characters who had wandered the line of life and death countless times, so they began to attack crazily the moment they heard the order. Even the immortal artifacts they used were refined by Tan Xiao, making them even more powerful than when they were in their hands. Puff, puff, puff. Sword lights flashed and saber lights splashed everywhere. Traceless Hunter could only watch helplessly as his 3 golden immortal subordinates who protected him were easily slaughtered by the enemy. Even their immortal souls couldn't escape as they were smashed by the immortal swords and sabers, and eventually dissipated. He had experienced crisis many times, but he had never felt death so close to him like this time. Don't kill me. I'll return the miasma pill to you and give you 10 million immortal crystals. Tanxiu rolled his eyes and cursed. Are you an idiot? As long as I kill you, not only the miasma pill and 10 million immortal crystals will be mine, but all your other wealth will also be mine. Kill him. Puff. Traceless Hunter's head was chopped off, and his body disintegrated in an instant. Even his immortal soul was destroyed by the sword qi and disappeared between heaven and earth. Tanxiu took the 5 interspatial rings. After breaking the imprints on them, he swept them with his spiritual sense and immediately looked satisfied, because he found that there was a lot of wealth inside. There were 4 million crystal essences alone, and countless immortal crystals and immortal stones. The total wealth added up to more than 310 million immortal crystals. In addition, Traceless Hunter's interspatial ring also contained a large number of cultivation resources and precious items. As for the interspatial rings of the other 4 golden immortals, there were also a large number of immortal stones, immortal crystals, and crystal essences. Together with Traceless Hunter's ring, the final number was 6 million crystal essences, more than 120 million immortal crystals, and more than 80 million immortal stones. As for the other things, they were estimated to be worth 5 million crystal essences. Destroy the traces and evacuate immediately. Tanxiu didn't want to have a conflict with the Hunter clan, because he knew very well that the Great Tang Empire's current strength was not a match for them. After all, the Hunter clan had a perfected golden immortal. Once the two sides started fighting, even if he asked 9 Nether Swordmeister for help, he would still suffer huge losses. 2 hours later, when Tanxiu was thousands of kilometers away from here, dozens of lightning-fast figures appeared in the Blackwind Forest. They were the experts of the Hunter clan. After the Hunter clan's ancestor used a secret technique, they finally determined that the place where Traceless Hunter's group of 5 was killed was here. However, they searched hard for a long time, and only found traces of a fight here. They couldn't find the bodies of Traceless Hunter's group of 5. In the next few days, they searched the entire Green Summit Bazaar, and collected all kinds of information, but they didn't find any information about the murderer. In the dark corridor, the round great demon Venerable watched the dozens of powerhouses of the Hunter clan leave. His eyes flashed. He didn't expect that the young man who bought a lot of things here would be so bold, and dared to kill the Hunter clan's young master. One must know that in the Hessen Castle Immortal Domain, only Madame Empyrean Pole of Mungjun City had a force stronger than the Hunter clan. There were also 2 other clans that were stronger than the Hunter clan. Daring to kill the Hunter clan's young master here was simply audacious. Listen to me. You are forbidden from divulging even half a word about what happened in our shop in the past few days. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. The great demon Venerable was silent for a long time, and then said solemnly. The shop assistants nodded one after another. One of them asked curiously, Venerable, do you think it's... Shut up. The great demon Venerable shouted coldly. The shop assistant shrunk his head and immediately looked frightened. We're merchants, people who open shops to do business. The great demon Venerable forced a smile. Our purpose is to make money, to make more and more money. We're not going to meddle in such matters. Besides, I have a hunch that Hessen Castle won't be peaceful in the future. Venerable, even if the Hunter clan's young master is killed, it won't have any impact on the entire Hessen Castle, right? At most, the Hunter clan will make trouble for a while. He even dared to kill the Hunter clan's young master. Do you think he's weak? Sneered the great demon Venerable. Do you think he doesn't have a huge background? The most important thing is that the Hunter clan's young master is very strong, and his 4 subordinates are golden immortals. Even they were silently slaughtered and erased without a trace. How could the other party be weak? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.